Chapter 1881. At this moment, under Yi Fei's tight surveillance, the Grand Shaman signed a contract with Yi Fei with tears in his eyes. He officially announced that he had joined the Human Emperor Palace and became the biggest trader in Chen Liang's Roland's Golden Palace. Of course, the other gold shamans who were still holding a banquet in Little Shaman City did not know about this. They were still immersed in the adoration and flattery of countless shamans. They did not know that the Grand Shaman who was ordered to spy on Yi Fei had already betrayed them. They also did not know that a huge golden warship had already passed through layers of the starry sky and suddenly entered Lonely Mountain and appeared in the sky above Little Shaman City. Who dares to use the golden warship? Could it be that the sorcerer god is here again? It's not the sorcerer god. It's the Heavenly Wind tribe. There's a special golden wolf totem on it. Different sorcerer tribes had different totems. The Heavenly Wind tribe's totem was a huge golden wolf head. Therefore, Jinsu's golden warship followed this custom. There was a golden wolf god carved on the front of the golden warship. When the golden warship entered Little Shaman City, it immediately reminded many shamans of the scene where Yi Fei killed Jin Wu in the ancestral sorcerer temple a year ago. Is the Heavenly Wind tribe here for revenge? Ridiculous! Now that young Master Shang has joined Chen Liang's Roland's Golden Palace, how dare the Heavenly Wind tribe take revenge on Shangjiu? The appearance of the golden warship was very surprising. However, most of the shamans did not take it seriously. The few gold shamans who came with Zhu Gong sneered and suddenly walked towards the golden warship in the void. Heavenly Wind tribe, retreat quickly. Now that Shangjiu is the disciple of Great Master Shang, you can't afford to offend him. These gold shamans looked very cold. Like Zhu Gong, they were all capable subordinates of Great Master Chen Liang and were secretly ordered to spy on Yi Fei. Although they did not know as much as Zhu Gong, they would definitely not let the Heavenly Wind tribe take revenge on Yi Fei. That would damage the reputation of Chen Liang's Roland's Golden Palace. These few gold shamans immediately showed their toughest attitude and stepped onto the golden warship, wanting to chase the people of the Heavenly Wind tribe away. However, before they could land on the golden warship, a terrifying spiritual fluctuation suddenly came from the warship. What? Shangjiu actually took that old bastard Chen Liang as his master? A lowly bastard will always be a lowly bastard. Does he think that he can go against me just because he has sided with Chen Liang? Impudent! How dare you disrespect the great sage? Heavenly Wind tribe, you must be tired of living. The few gold-ranked magi were furious. The sorcerer god had a high status in the sorcerer tribe. Other than sorcerer gods of the same level, if other sorcerer gods called him by his name, it would be the greatest disrespect to him. These few grand magi from Kindred's Golden Palace could no longer hold themselves back. They shouted out together and were about to rush onto the battleship and arrest the crazy man who spoke so rudely. Scram! On the golden warship, a golden figure that was as bright as the sun and moon suddenly stepped out. With just a casual wave of his hand, the entire sky above Little Shaman City was already swirling with a terrifying spiritual storm. Jinshi, you are Jinshi. You have also stepped into the supreme realm and become a sorcerer god. The few gold-ranked magi's faces changed drastically. They had been cultivating in Kindred's Golden Palace all year round, so they could naturally feel the terrifying spiritual fluctuation of the blonde youth and the golden treasure in his body that was like a sun furnace. This was the symbol of a sorcerer god. What? Jinshi has broken through to the sorcerer god. Gongzhu, didn't you say that he still has 100 years to break through? Yi Fei's face was very ugly. Originally, everything was going smoothly for him in the sorcerer tribe. Not only did he join Kindred's Golden Palace, but he also subdued Gongzhu and made him a sorcerer trader. Who would have thought that Jinshi had broken through to the sorcerer god decades earlier? Not only Yi Fei's face changed, but even Grand Magi Gong Zhu widened his eyes in shock. He hurriedly sent a spiritual message to Yi Fei. Big brother, while Jinshi's attention is still on Little Shaman City and he hasn't discovered us, We should hurry back to Kindred's golden palace and escape. Hurry up and run back to Roland's golden palace. With how much Grand Sovereign Chun Liang values you, he will definitely stop Jin Shi from attacking you. Yifei glanced at Gong Zhu blandly, but didn't say anything. He had finally gotten rid of Chun Liang's surveillance. If he returned now, wouldn't that be like sending a sheep into a tiger's mouth? At least, before Gong Zhu finds out what Chun Liang is trying to do to me, I can't easily return to Kindred's golden palace. But if I don't return, how can I deal with a sorcerer god like Jin Shi? Yifei had mixed feelings. He increasingly felt that he wasn't powerful enough. If he wasn't a grand magus but a sorcerer god, why would he be afraid of Jin Shi and Chun Liang? He would even dare to fight his way back to the impregnable pass of the human tribe. But unfortunately, he didn't have that kind of power now. After all, the golden treasure only gave him a chance to break through to the sorcerer god level. But Yifei didn't have the chance to break through to the sorcerer god level. Jin Shi had already broken through to the sorcerer god level before him. Boom! Sensing Jin Shi's terrifying spiritual power, which swept across the entire city and was comparable to that of a true god or a true devil, Yifei couldn't help but feel frightened. Without reaching the Supreme Being level, one would never know how terrifying the Supreme Being level was. At least for now, if Yifei faced the furious Jin Shi, he would definitely die. Shangjiu, my B Astra's star brother, I know you're hiding here. What? You have the ability to kill my son, but don't you have the ability to face me? Well, after all, you're AB asterisk starred half-human half-sorcerer. Back then, when I humiliated the woman you loved most to death, you didn't say a word. You can only be a coward. Are you going to hide like a coward? Ha! Jin, she cursed viciously. In Yifei's heart, there was also a sudden surge of anger and violence. It was as if there was a thought in his mind that made him throw caution to the wind and rush out to perish together with Jin Shi. Yifei's face instantly darkened. He knew that Shangjiu's emotions were affecting him. Now that his enemy was right in front of him, it was obvious that Shangjiu's emotions had been completely ignited. Even though Yifei had tried his best to suppress them, when he saw Jin Shi and heard Jin Shi's vicious insults, Shangjiu's emotions finally affected Yifei. Jin Shi. Shangjiu's voice suddenly sounded from Yifei's mouth. It was violent, crazy, and filled with unforgettable hatred. Even though Shangjiu had died long ago, died in the world, and died in his memory. But in the face of his lifelong enemy, Shangjiu's emotions and hatred were still on Yifei's body. His anger had completely erupted. Chapter 1882. That's not right. You're not a bastard, but why do you have Shangjiu's aura on you? Jin Shi traversed the entire little shaman city in a single step and appeared in the void outside the Black Warship. What he used was the Greater Void Steps, and the most complete version at that. It was even more exquisite than Shangjiu's. But soon after, Jin Shi used the sorcerer god's powerful spiritual senses to sense that something was wrong with Yifei's aura. Since things had already progressed to this stage, there was no point in hiding anymore. Yifei coldly stepped forward and stared at Jin Shi fearlessly. That's right, I'm not Shangjiu. However, I have Shangjiu's hatred on me. Jin Shi, one day, I'll make sure you die in my hands. Yifei did this not only for Shangjiu, but also for himself. From Shangjiu's emotional reaction, Yifei knew that Shangjiu still had a final card up his sleeve. Shangjiu's emotions had already merged with his. If he did not kill Jin Shi would become his stepping stone on the path of martial arts. The biggest obstacle to the peak. It might even give birth to an inner demon. The only way was to kill Jin Shi and complete Shangjiu's revenge. Only then would Shangjiu's influence on him be completely erased. Jin Shi's face was filled with shock. So that means that my bastard brother is really dead? Otherwise, he wouldn't have given you his golden treasure. He wants to use you to avenge him? Oof, that bastard can dream on. Shut your stinking mouth. Yifei suddenly roared. Although Shangjiu was a magus and had the cruel side of a magus, at the same time, Shangjiu was also a true man with feelings, a true hero with an indomitable spirit. Jin Shi's words had undoubtedly infuriated Yi Fei. Boom! Then, a terrifying ball of sorcerer light turned into a terrifying godly wolf. It swallowed the sun and the moon and viciously lunged towards Yi Fei. Secret void technique. Divine wolf swallows the sun and moon. Jin Shi's expression was cold, harsh, and vaguely cruel. After knowing that Yi Fei wasn't Shangjiu, he didn't even bother to talk to Yi Fei. He didn't even bother to look at Yi Fei. The terrifying god wolf had already opened its mouth, as if it was going to swallow the sun and the moon. He wanted to swallow Yi Fei and the black warship into the void and kill them. Yi Fei's heart sank. Jin Shi's ruthlessness and decisiveness had exceeded his expectations. However, this was also the reason why Jin Shi was able to stand out among the thousands of gold-ranked shamans and become the shaman god. Yi Fei did not dare to be careless. He knew that if he were to fight Jin Shi head-on, he would only die. At the core of the warship was the sorcerer god's altar. As the name suggested, this was the altar where the sorcerer god cast spells. As Grand Monarch Chun Liang's ship, the Black Warship naturally had an altar like this as well. At the same time, this altar was the Black Warship's strongest point of defense. Worker, start the warship. We'll retreat immediately. Boom! The Black Warship suddenly erupted with intense divine light. As Yi Fei's gold divine treasure fused with the altar, it provided the warship with power. Worker Zhu's Grand Shaman also went all out and activated the warship's power with all his might. The warship rapidly retreated. As it passed through layers of the void, it erupted with terrifying black light that resembled a black hole. It actually turned around and tore the void divine wolf released by Jin Shi into pieces. Bastard, you're courting death. All of a sudden, Jin Shi's enraged roar came from the void. He made a grabbing motion in the air, and the stars that were originally floating in the starry sky suddenly felt a strong gravitational force. Countless shooting stars turned into flames, crushing the void from the starry sky. And then from the void, they continuously crashed into the black battleship like meteors. Wah! Worker Zhu's Grand Shaman was the first to succumb. He had already been severely injured by Yi Fei. Now, he was facing the sorcerer god's attack. Even though the Black Warship had a Grand Shaman restriction, Worker Zhu was still severely injured on the spot. However, Jin Shi's attack would not stop because of Worker Zhu's injury. He raised one hand toward the starry sky and continuously grabbed at the void. In Jin Shi's hands, the Great Void technique suddenly erupted with boundless power. Meteors after meteors with terrifying flames burned through the sky, as if they were going to destroy the world. The power of the meteors caused many low-level sorcerers in Little Sorcerer City to vomit blood. No one knew how many of them were accidentally injured and smashed into pieces by the falling meteors. Yi Fei's expression suddenly became very grave. Without breaking through to the Supremacy Realm, he would never know how terrifying a sorcerer god at the Supremacy Realm was. Even though he now had the combat strength of an upper-level martial god, it was still difficult for him to resist Jin Shi, who was at the Sorcerer God realm. This was under the protection of Grand Venerable Chun Liang's Black Warship. Without this warship, he and Worker Zhu would probably only be able to hold on for 10 breaths of time before being killed by Jin Shi in an instant. What should I do? If I give up on Worker Zhu, detonate the Black Warship, and escape with all my strength, I might still have a chance to escape from Jin Shi. However, if I do that, all my efforts in the Sorcerer Tribe will be in vain. Looking at Yi Fei standing on the altar hesitantly, Jin Shi's eyes flashed with cold mockery and strong disdain. You're just a bastard. Even if Shangjiu gave you the Battle Sorcerer God realm and the Golden Divine Treasure in front of me, a bastard like you will only end up dead. Boom! The moment the word dead left his mouth, Jin Shi finally lost his last bit of patience. With a loud roar, the boundless power of the void suddenly turned into the power of the stars. Rumble! Then, the void behind Jin Shi suddenly split open, and thousands of burning stars crazily fell down. Yi Fei was horrified to discover that Jin Shi had used a sorcerer spell to refine thousands of stars in order to deal with Shangjiu. This kind of power far surpassed that of an upper-level martial god. Even if he had the battle sorcerer body, if he was hit by these stars, he would definitely die. I can't hesitate any longer. Jin Shi, you've gone too far. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in Yi Fei's ears. Then, the altar he was standing on suddenly erupted with dazzling sorcerer light, quickly forming an ancient stone portal. Bang! The stone portal opened instantly, and Grand Monarch Chun Liang's majestic figure stepped out of the stone portal. He gently pointed at the falling stars in the sky. Whoosh! Facing the power of Grand Monarch Chun Liang's finger, all of the stars came to a halt, and then turned around to smash towards Jin Shi's true form at an even faster speed. Jin Shi was furious. The dazzling golden light on his body was suddenly replaced by a layer of petrified skin, instantly turning him into a terrifying stone golem king. He shattered the void and countless stars that came close to him. Chunliang, how dare you stop me? Sorcerer spell, Void Star Shatter. Chapter 1883. Sorcery, Mirror Reflection. Facing the incoming debris of the stars, Grand Monarch Chun Liang's body suddenly erupted with a layer of silver light, forming a special mirror that shook violently in front of him. Instantly, the debris of the stars released by Jin Shi all froze. Then, as if time had reversed, they shot back at Jin Shi at an even faster speed. Jin Shi's furious roar came from the end of the shattered void. That roar was like the howl of a wolf, like the wrath of a fiend god, shattering the void and causing the starlight to crumble. A huge void hand appeared between heaven and earth, grabbing the sun and the moon and condensing starlight. Chunliang, this has nothing to do with you. They're just disciples. I can compensate you with 10 or even 100 of them, as long as you let me kill that bastard and avenge my son. Sorcery, light of the void. The condensed star brilliance suddenly turned into a black ray of void light, which was struck by Jin Shi once again. It tore little shaman city into two halves from middle. Who knew how many low-ranked shamans had their bodies destroyed by this spell, leaving behind only blood dripping everywhere? Grand Monarch Chunliang was instantly enraged. He was a refugee and didn't have the support of a large tribe. To him, these ordinary refugee shamans were his foundation. They were the key to buying people's hearts and recruiting them. But now, Jin Shi dared to kill them wantonly. Intense rage caused a terrifying psychic storm to erupt from Grand Monarch Chun Liang's body. In the blink of an eye, he had become a terrifying stone giant, just like Jin Shi. His furious stone fingers, which carried deathly, silent light, suddenly pierced through the void around Jin Shi. It shattered. Chun Liang's furious voice came from the void. Jin Shi, you've gone too far. You just become a sorcerer god, but you dared to kill my disciples and the innocent. I have no choice but to fight today. Shangjiu, Gongzhu, return to my golden palace first. I'll talk to you after I kill this bastard Jin Shi. As Chunliang spoke, he waved his hand again. His boundless mental energy had already formed a frightening suction force. Not only did it cause the black warship to fuse with him, but it also caused the black warship to become one with him. On the altar, Yi Fei and Gongzhu's bodies were restrained and sent into the teleportation gate Chunliang had built. Chunliang, how dare you? In the void, Jin Shi's furious roar could be heard. Unfortunately, in front of Chunliang, who had become one with the black warship, even if Jin Shi was the sorcerer god, he could not get past Chunliang and hurt Yi Fei. He could only vent all his anger on Chunliang. Since you want to oppose me, Chunliang, then I'll kill you. Then I'll step over your corpse, kill Shangjiu, and destroy your golden palace. Where is my battleship? Boom! The huge golden warship instantly appeared in front of Jin Shi, wrapping him up like layers of armor. Soon, two metal giants, one gold and one black, appeared in the sky and started fighting violently under the starry sky of the lonely mountain ridge. Yi Fei could also clearly see the horror of the witch god's battle through the stone door. Only then did he realize that the black warship was not only the witch god's vehicle, but also his weapon in battle. After all, the witch god's physical body was weak. Therefore, building a strong warship was something that many witch gods had to do. At the same time, the witch god's terrifying combat strength shocked Yi Fei greatly. Fortunately, I didn't fight Jin Shi to the death. Even if I had the combat strength of an upper-level martial god, I wouldn't be a match for the witch god. After all, the witch god and the earthly venerate were the most powerful beings in this world. What was worse was that Yi Fei had offended two witch gods at the same time. Moreover, Grand Venerate Chun Liang's timely arrival made Yi Fei even more certain that Grand Venerate Chun Liang had been secretly watching him all this time. It's over. We're done for. As if offending Jin Shi wasn't enough, the fact that the Grand Monarch rushed here so quickly and spared no effort to protect you shows that he's up to no good. Gong Zhu wasn't an idiot. He had suspected that Grand Monarch Chun Liang was going to do something to Yi Fei. Now that Grand Venerate Chun Liang had reacted so quickly, Gong Zhu's face turned pale. He secretly regretted signing the witch oath with Yi Fei and becoming a witch traitor. Big brother, why don't we run away while Grand Venerate Chun Liang and Jin Shi are still fighting? 10 days is enough for us to escape into the starry sky and hide. Grand Venerate Gong Zhu sent a voice transmission in fear. After all, he was currently tied to Yi Fei. If Yi Fei was done for, he would only die a more miserable death. At this moment, Yi Fei's mood was also very nervous. If Jin Shi was a ferocious wolf, then Chun Liang was a cunning tiger. No matter which side he fell into, he would be at a disadvantage. What should I do? Run away? That won't do. He had finally managed to sneak into the witch tribe and become a member of the witch tribe. If he ran away now, not only would his efforts be in vain, but he would also lose his last chance to rescue Zhao Yu. But if he continued to stay, even if he managed to stop Jin Shi, Chun Liang could still kill him at any time. If only I could find out what Chun Liang is trying to do to me. Then, I would be able to deal with him as I see fit and think of a way to deal with him. Thinking of this, Yi Fei suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Why didn't I think of that? Since Chun Liang refused to reveal anything, wouldn't I investigate it myself? The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Yi Fei couldn't help but look at Chun Liang's golden palace. That was where Chun Liang cultivated and was also the safest place in the entire golden palace. If Chun Liang had any secrets, he would definitely hide them in that golden palace. Gong Zhu, you just said that the battle between the witch gods will last for 10 days. Is that true? Yi Fei asked in a low voice. Big brother, I'm not sure. But it's not the first time that a battle between the witch gods has broken out in our witch tribe. It can last for several months, or at least 10 days before a victor is decided. We could take advantage of this time to run away. Gong Zhu perked up, thinking that Yi Fei had finally thought of a plan. Thought of it? Yi Fei was speechless. Do I look like someone who's afraid of death? As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. We can run away for a while, but can we run away for a lifetime? While Chun Liang and Jin Shi are fighting fiercely, take me to Chun Liang's golden palace immediately. Gong Zhu sucked in a breath of cold air. What? You want to sneak into the great sage's golden palace? You're a lunatic. Do you have guts? You actually came up with such a crazy idea. You know that if the great sage finds out, we'll immediately die without a burial place. Yi Fei sneered. Didn't you say that Chun Liang and Jin Shi will fight for 10 days? What are you afraid of in such a long time? Even if there's a restriction inside, I can think of a way to deal with it. Gong Zhu's scalp went numb. He stared at Yi Fei as if he was looking at a lunatic. Emperor Yi, you're really crazy. The Golden Palace is such an important place. Do you think the Great Sage doesn't have any precautions? Let me tell you, not only is there a restriction inside the Golden Palace, there are also at least 2 Great Sages' most trusted golden shamans outside at all times. They're in charge of guarding. You won't be able to get in. Yi Fei was stunned. Only now did he know that sneaking into Chun Liang's Golden Palace seemed to be much more difficult than he had imagined. But even so, Yi Fei still decided to give it a try. Chapter 1884. Oomph. Stop dreaming. You won't be able to get past the golden great magi who are guarding this place. Gongzhu finally got the chance to mock Yi Fei when he was defeated. Yi Fei wasn't angry when he heard that. Instead, he stabbed Gongzhu's thigh when no one was paying attention. The latter started to bleed profusely and couldn't help but let out a shrill scream. "Big brother, what happened to you? Why are you bleeding so much? Don't worry, I'll help you back. Hurry up and treat your wounds." Yi Fei cried out even more miserably than Gongzhu. At this moment, he was filled with concern as he picked up Gongzhu and dashed towards Gongzhu's palace. The gold wizards along the way did not stop him, nor did they take him seriously. All of them were fully focused on the battle scene behind the stone door. After all, the battle between the wizard gods was of great help to their understanding of the more profound wizard spells. Improve. You're so cruel. I didn't offend you. Why did you stab me for no reason? Gongzhu roared furiously in the palace. Yi Fei calmly called out Xiao Qiao, and then had Xiao Qiao calmly take out the deity striking whip. Gongzhu immediately became obedient and hurriedly smiled. "You're my older brother. Don't mention stabbing me once. Even if you stab me 10 more times, it's still my duty as your younger brother, ah?" Yi Fei patted Gongzhu's shoulder with satisfaction. "Second brother, I didn't misjudge you. Don't worry, I won't stab you 10 times. I only want you to go to Chun Liang's Golden Palace and find a way to attract the attention of the 2 great magi guarding the palace." "What? You've already thought of a way to break through the great magi's Golden Palace?" Gongzhu's face turned pale. In shock, the thigh that was stabbed by Yi Fei started to bleed profusely again. Gongzhu was so frightened that he hurriedly used his magi to heal himself. While Gongzhu was healing himself, Yi Fei once again took out the lazy Ling Siki from the beast mark space. He said, "Ling Siki, whether we can sneak in this time depends on you. Little brother, what do you want me to do?" Ling Siki was innocent, but that did not mean that she was not sensible. As a demigod, Ling Siki was also a very powerful helper. Of course, in Yi Fei's eyes, Ling Siki's strongest point was not her cultivation level, but her ability to conceal herself that even Xiao Qiao could not detect. This was also the most miraculous aspect of the 10 spirits creation heavenly technique. It sees the fortune of heaven and earth, and could change its size at will. Immediately, Yi Fei instructed Ling Siki in a low voice. Then he took out the magic crystal pagoda and entered the magic crystal pagoda with Xiao Qiao. Ling Siki, on the other hand, remained outside. She put the magic crystal pagoda into her bosom. Suddenly, her body swayed. She had already activated the 10 spirits creation heavenly arts creation chapter. With a whoosh, she turned from a 10-year-old girl to a tiny little thing the size of a grain of rice. She even jumped up onto the Grand Shaman's head. Ling Ling was like a goddess of war. She commanded Gongzhu, "Grand Shaman Gongzhu, we will go to Roland's Golden Palace now. Think of a way to attract the attention of those 2 guards and cover me as I run into Roland's Golden Palace." You guys, when Gongzhu saw Ling Siki, who had turned into the size of a grain of rice, his face instantly became very shocked. Such a method was simply beyond his understanding. This was also the most miraculous aspect of the 10 spirits creation heavenly technique. It could change its size at will. Moreover, not only could Ling Siki transform herself, she could also transform with the items on her body. That was how domineering the 10 spirits creation heavenly technique was. Thinking back, Yi Fei was also shocked when he saw Ling Siki use such a method for the first time, let alone the Grand Shaman Gongzhu, who did not have any knowledge of martial arts. Helplessly, the Grand Shaman Gongzhu, who had become the second in command from the elder brother, could only let the little girl stand on his head and order him around. He had no choice but to drag his injured leg that was still bleeding and hurried to Chun Liang's Golden Palace. Gongzhu's miserable appearance immediately startled the 2 gold-rank shamans who were guarding the door. "Gongzhu, why are you not recuperating in the palace? What are you doing here?" "Shut up. Gongzhu, am the trusted subordinate of the great sage. How can an ordinary injury stop my love and respect for the great sage? I will wait here for the great sage to return and personally thank the great sage for saving my life. Gong Zhu was full of righteousness, but his heart was weak. The two gold-rank shamans at the door also showed a disdainful look and sneered rudely. Gong Zhu, back then you relied on flattery to make the great sage promote you to a grand shaman. What? Now you still want to rely on flattery to make the great sage guide you to break through to the supreme shaman level? Get lost. We don't need a flatterer like you here. You just need to follow the great sage's instructions and keep an eye on Shangjiao. It didn't matter if they didn't mention it, but once they did, Gong Zhu was indeed touched where it hurt the most. After all, if it weren't for the fact that Chun Liang ordered him to keep an eye on Yi Fei, he wouldn't have ended up like this. As a great gold-rank shaman, not only had he become a traitor, but he had also become the second most powerful man in the palace, who would never be able to rise again. Gong Zhu was infuriated. He didn't even need Yi Fei to tell him what to do. Instead, he burst into a violent rage, and his entire body shone with a dazzling golden light as he shouted, "Shut your damn mouths. You're just two watchdogs. Why do you have to laugh at me?" The two gold-rank shamans were both startled by Gong Zhu's roar. Then they were deeply infuriated. Together they yelled, "Gong Zhu, how dare you scold us?" "Very well. Didn't you want to pretend to be pitiful and win the great sage's sympathy? We'll fulfill your wish and beat him hard." Both of them were the great sage's trusted subordinates. They didn't like each other, so it was inevitable for them to fight for the great sage's favor. At this moment, seeing Gong Zhu making trouble, these two gold-rank shamans simply rushed up together, surrounded Gong Zhu, and beat him up. Poor Gong Zhu was severely injured by Yi Fei not long ago, and then he was injured by Jin Shi. When he came back, he was even stabbed by Yi Fei with a sword. Now he was being beaten up by two gold-rank shamans. He was pressed to the ground on the spot, and his nose was bleeding. He was so angry that he almost burst into tears. "What sin did I, Gong Zhu? Do you have to do this to me, Yi Fei? Please stop beating me." The two gold-rank shamans turned a deaf ear to Gong Zhu's words. They didn't say anything, but kept beating Gong Zhu with all their strength. They swore to teach Gong Zhu a lesson. Therefore, they didn't notice that when they were beating Gong Zhu badly, a grain-sized little human girl had quietly run past them. With another breath, she rushed into Chun Liang's most important place, the Golden Palace. In here, Ling Siki didn't dare to run around. Instead, she hesitantly asked Yi Fei, "Little Guogua, I'm here. What should we do now?" "Don't move. Wait for Xiao Chao to sense the restrictive spells of the Supreme Magus. Dragon Turtle, Xiao Chao, get ready." Yi Fei had prepared for this. Chapter 1885. To the left. To the right. Wrong. Go back and continue to the left. Be careful. The one in front is not a restriction, but a trap. Don't touch it. Great Sovereign Chun Liang is indeed a cunning old fox. He set up so many witchcraft traps, even in the safest place, the Golden Palace. Fortunately, we have Xiao Chao. Yi Fei rubbed Xiao Chao's ponytail and praised him. Squeak. Xiao Chao was very proud. Under the effect of the heaven and earth spiritual eye, no matter what kind of energy it was, it couldn't escape Xiao Cao's senses. Although great venerable Chun Liang was experienced and had set up layers of witchcraft restrictions in the Golden Palace, they were still seen through by Xiao Chao. Yi Fei was so happy that he promised Xiao Chao on the spot that in the future, Xiao Chao could eat as many magic crystals as she wanted in the Magic Crystal Pagoda. Xiao Cao's eyes were instantly filled with generosity. The only thing that spoiled the mood was the black tortoise that always followed them. It kept poking its head out and looking around, afraid that Yi Fei and Xiao Chao didn't notice it. Yi Fei pretended not to see it. The dragon turtle was not angry. It just shamelessly rubbed against Yi Fei's trouser leg. Because it rubbed too hard, it accidentally broke Yi Fei's trouser leg. This made Yi Fei very depressed. He could only promise to share some of the magic crystals to get rid of the shameless black turtle. The turtle, At this time, Ling Siki, who had turned into a small person, happened to be guided by Xiao Chao's spiritual eye. She successfully avoided the layers of witchcraft restrictions and traps and ran to the throne where great sovereign Chunliang was sitting. Then, her body returned to normal. Yi Fei, Xiao Chao, and the dragon turtle walked out of the magic crystal pagoda. Sister Xiao Chao, is the sorcerer god's treasure really here? Ling Siki looked around curiously. She found that although the Golden Palace was full of restrictions, it was very simple overall. Not to mention treasures, there were not even many magic crystals. Xiao Chao's expression was very certain. He patted his body like a little adult and pointed to the ground of the throne. Yi Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly pushed the throne back. Boom! A dazzling underground golden palace appeared in front of Yi Fei. Only then did Yi Fei realize that the golden palace above was just a facade. Chunliang's real golden palace was actually hidden in another space. However, this was very much in line with Chunliang's crafty style. With Ling Siki protecting Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle, Yi Fei was the first to enter the palace. He realized that this underground palace was very luxurious. Looks like Chunliang looks poor and looks like the leader of a refugee sorcerer, but deep down, he is just like those noble sorcerer gods from the big tribes. Seeking pleasure, selfish, and self-serving. Being poor and kind is just a way for him to win people's hearts. Stepping on the stairs that were purely made of luxurious gold, what came into view were countless artificial mountains, ponds, and pavilions. Yi Fei even saw magic crystals hanging in the air, twisting and turning to form resplendent spirit dragons. It made the golden palace even more beautiful, like a heavenly palace. Roar! Seeing so many magic crystals in front of him, almost transforming into a real spiritual dragon, the dragon turtle trembled in excitement. It stretched its neck out and habitually bit the nearest magic crystal with its black mouth. Yi Fei's face darkened. Xiao Chao, tie up Big Black's mouth. If it dares to eat it secretly, we'll throw it out and sell it. Little brother, can you sell a dragon turtle? How much? I'll buy it. Ling Siki had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Her little face was as red as an apple. The dragon turtle's face turned ashen as it was about to bite down with its black beak. It suddenly opened its beak, but it did not bite down on the magic crystal. Instead, it bit down on a scroll not too far away. It held the scroll in its beak and wagged its tail madly, as if asking for a reward from Yi Fei. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao's faces darkened. However, when he saw what the dragon turtle had brought over, Yi Fei's expression changed drastically. The shaman script on the scroll read, Battle Shaman. It's actually the battle shaman that Shang Jiu taught me. That's strange. Chunliang is clearly on the path of the sorcerer. How could he have the cultivation method of the battle shaman? Yi Fei quickly picked up the scroll and studied it carefully. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. He realized that this battle shaman was even more complete than the one that Shang Jiu taught him. Shang Jiu's battle shaman only recorded the cultivation method of the sorcerer god. However, the battle shaman that Chunliang had mastered was actually the cultivation method of the sorcerer's supremacy, which was the cultivation method of the heavenly venerable. The battle shaman is actually the cultivation method of the heavenly venerable. Yi Fei's heart was filled with shock. However, he was soon shocked by another thing. That was the mountain of battle techniques on the ground where the dragon turtle had picked up the scroll. That's right, battle techniques. Battle techniques that only battle shamans could use. Moreover, all of them were gold-level sorcerer battle techniques. However, the scrolls that recorded these battle techniques were all very tattered, as if they had been through countless years. Yi Fei didn't dare to touch them carefully. This was because the slightest bit of force could cause these scrolls to shatter and be eroded by the wind. Chunliang would then be able to see through them when he returned. The dragon turtle was also lucky. The scroll that it had picked up just happened to be the one that was in the best condition. Yi Fei carefully memorized the heavenly venerable content on the scroll, which was a specific method to condense the true body of the ancestral sorcerer. Then, he carefully put the scroll back in its original position. Then, his gaze involuntarily focused on another throne in the Roland's Golden Palace. Obviously, that was where great venerable Chun Liang had truly cultivated. There were still a large number of scrolls piled up around the high platform. However, these scrolls belonged to the sorcerer race. Yi Fei even saw many traces of golden blood on some of the scrolls. Clearly, great venerable Chun Liang had used underhanded means to obtain these scrolls. However, the most eye-catching thing was, it was a stone scroll placed on the throne. That scroll was exceptionally heavy. Although it was placed lightly on the throne, when Yi Fei picked it up, he felt as if he wasn't picking up a scroll, but a heavy mountain. Then, a sorcerer cultivation memory that originally belonged to Shang Jiao appeared in Yi Fei's mind. Shang Jiao once entered some ancient ruins and saw this kind of stone scroll. This is a scroll drawn with the stone skin of the sorcerer god. This is a method that only the ancient sorcerers could use. The ancient era. Gods and demons were everywhere. Even heavenly venerables weren't considered strong. Only in that era could they be so extravagant as to directly strip the sorcerer god of his stone skin and use it to record. The strongest in the ancient era were the battle shamans. Sorcerers and artifact sorcerers were actually the servants of the battle shamans. Sorcerers were only responsible for offering sacrifices and healing, while artifact sorcerers were responsible for refining sorcerer artifacts and taming battle beasts. How is this possible? Chapter 1886. However, after thinking about it carefully, Yi Fei felt that it was normal for battle shamans to be powerful. After all, this was a world where martial arts reigned supreme. Only martial arts were the strongest. The battle techniques of battle shamans were actually another form of martial arts, spiritual martial arts, and battle shamans. They were actually shamans who cultivated spiritual martial arts. However, for some reason, the powerful battle shamans completely declined in the shaman tribe. Instead, the originally weak spell shamans and weapon shamans ruled over the shaman tribe. However, the strength of spell shamans and weapon shamans was only reflected before warriors comprehended the laws. Once warriors comprehended the laws, they would immediately be above spell shamans and weapon shamans. This was similar to the alchemists and weapon masters among human warriors. Even though they could refine all sorts of powerful pills and weapons, their personal combat abilities were generally very weak. They could not be compared to warriors who only fought for the sake of battle. From this, Yi Fei deduced that spell shamans and weapon shamans were actually equivalent to the alchemists and weapon masters among warriors. Only battle shamans belonged to the shaman tribe. They were battle shamans who were born for battle. After realizing this, Yi Fei could not help but have a strong interest in this stone scroll. He began to focus his mind and diligently decipher the words on it. These words were all spiritual words imprinted by the immemorial shamans using their powerful spiritual energy. They were very powerful and very difficult to decipher. If not for the fact that Yi Fei possessed the golden treasure trove, an ordinary grand shaman would feel dizzy just by looking at these words. They might even suffer a backlash from the spiritual words on the scroll. With no other choice, Yi Fei could only awaken the undying sword soul that had been dormant for a long time to infinitely increase his comprehension. Only then did he feel that he could somewhat understand the hidden spiritual meaning of these immemorial words. Just like this, Yi Fei did not move. He only held the immemorial scroll in his hands and continued to study and comprehend it. Very quickly, 10 days passed by quietly. Yi Fei's originally calm expression gradually turned grave, then pale, and finally ashen. I see. This scroll was actually written by an immemorial spell shaman in the immemorial era. The thing that this wizard regretted the most in his life was that he did not have enough talent to become a powerful battle wizard. He could only be reduced to an inconspicuous existence in the wizard tribe. However, this person did not have enough talent in martial arts, but he is a genius who cultivates evil sorcery. Thus, this genius spent his entire life researching an extremely evil shaman spell called spirit shifting technique. It could actually take over the body of a battle shaman and turn himself from a magical shaman into the most powerful battle shaman. Moreover, this sorcery wasn't about snatching the other party's divine treasures, but about using one's own divine treasures. That was because he wanted to devour his opponent's divine treasures. This way, not only would he be able to retain his cultivation base, he would also be able to perfectly transform himself from a wizard to the most powerful battle wizard. This is what Chun Liang wants to do to me. Boom! After reading this paragraph, Yi Fei couldn't help but erupt with a strong, killing intent. Yi Fei had originally guessed that Chun Liang's intention might be to steal his golden divine treasure, but Yi Fei quickly dismissed this idea. After all, the greatest use of the golden divine treasure was to allow a wizard to have the possibility of breaking through the supremacy realm and becoming a wizard god. Chun Liang was already a wizard god, so there was no need for him to steal someone else's golden divine treasure. It wasn't until he saw this immemorial scroll that Yi Fei realized Chun Liang's true intention. He actually wanted to use his battle wizard path to transform from a weak wizard into the most powerful battle wizard. Hearing Yi Fei's words, Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle were very angry. Xiao Chao was so angry that he picked up the god-lashing whip and was about to go out and settle the score with Chun Liang. At this moment, Ling Siki suddenly thought of something and looked at Yi Fei strangely. Strange, if Supreme Chun Liang wants to take over little Guoguo's body, why hasn't he done anything yet? Instead, he's protecting us with all his might? This is where I'm the most cunning and astute person. Although the witchcraft recorded in this immemorial scroll is evil and strange, it also has an obvious shortcoming, and that is the realm of the caster after the fusion will also be the realm of the caster. Yi Fei sneered. Ling Siki said in surprise. So, if Supreme Chun Liang takes over little Guoguo's body, his realm will fall from wizard god to grand wizard? That's right. That's why Supreme Chun Liang didn't do anything to me. He only asked Gong Zhu to secretly monitor me. If I'm not wrong, Supreme Chun Liang intends to wait until I break through to wizard god before making a move on me and forcibly fuse with my battle wizard body. This way, he won't lose his realm and it will go smoothly. He will go from wizard to the most powerful battle wizard. The more Yi Fei spoke, the angrier he became. What did he mean by taking him in as a disciple? After all this time, Supreme Chun Liang intended to fatten him up and slaughter him like a pig. However, after understanding Supreme Chun Liang's plan, Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief. Since Supreme Chun Liang can't bear to part with his wizard god realm and plans to make a move on me after I break through to wizard god, it means that I'll be safe in the wizard tribe during this period. As long as I can delay until I represent the wizard tribe and marry the god of heaven, maybe I'll be able to get rid of Supreme Chun Liang. Boom! Just as Yi Fei was thinking, the entire Roland's golden palace suddenly trembled slightly. Yi Fei's expression changed instantly. This was the signal that he and Gong Zhu had agreed on beforehand. If anything unusual happened outside, or if the battle between Supreme Chun Liang and Jin she was about to end, Gong Zhu would find an excuse to anger the guards outside the Roland's golden palace and use a big fight to remind him that it was time to retreat. This was also the 10th day since Yi Fei had sneaked into the Roland's golden palace. However, Yi Fei didn't expect the battle between Supreme Chun Liang and Supreme Chun Liang to end so quickly. Luckily, Supreme Chun Liang is stalling for time outside. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have known that such a sinister scheme was hidden behind Supreme Chun Liang's kindness. A cold light flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. Then, he looked at the stone scroll in his hand with great pity. This primordial scroll was too heavy. Its weight was equivalent to a star. If such a weight was placed into the space belt would instantly collapse. Even the space of the pagoda wouldn't be able to withstand it. After all, This scroll was made from the skin of the supreme witch, and there was an ancient primordial spirit attached to it. The spiritual power of a sorcerer. Yi Fei guessed that this ancient sorcerer was very likely a powerful heavenly venerate. Otherwise, the primordial scroll he left behind wouldn't be so terrifying. The weight of a single spiritual character was comparable to a star. When tens of thousands of characters were combined, that would be tens of thousands of stars. With such a weight, even a supreme, which like Chun Liang wouldn't be able to carry it around, let alone Yi Fei. Therefore, Chun Liang had no choice but to hide such an important primordial scroll in the underground Roland's Golden Palace and set up layers of restrictions to protect this primordial scroll. I reckon that Chun Liang would never have imagined that his spiritual restriction would be useless against the cooperation of Xiao Chao and Ling Siki. It even allowed me to see through his scheme. Xiao Chao, Dragon Turtle, let's go. Chapter 1887. Boom! Outside Little Witch City, the battle between the two sorcerer gods was still going on, but the intensity was obviously not as intense as it was 10 days ago, especially with the destruction of the warships of both sides. Both Chun Liang and Jin, she had the intention to stop, but neither side was willing to lose face, so they were the first to stop. Thus, the situation was in a stalemate. Both sides were waiting for the other side to be the first to admit defeat and retreat. The attitude of the two sorcerer gods finally allowed the affected Little Witch City to be preserved. However, the battle in Little Witch City gradually subsided, while the battle outside the Roland's Palace became more and more intense. Because he had signed the Sorcerer Oath, he had no choice but to become the biggest sorcerer trader of the sorcerer race. Even though he was beaten until his nose was bleeding, in order to not be implicated by Yi Fei, Sorcerer Gongzhu could only hold back his tears and fight for his life outside the Roland's Palace, not daring to give the two Golden Sorcerer Guard a chance to discover the abnormality of the Roland's Palace. In these 10 days, in the eyes of the two Roland's Palace guards, Gongzhu seemed to have been reborn, as if he was a different person. In the past, Gongzhu was only good at flattery, but his talent was very ordinary. Otherwise, Gongzhu would not have embarked on the path of combining sorcery and weapon sorcery. Normally, after Gongzhu was beaten once, he would obediently retreat, not daring to come to the Roland's Palace to ask for a rebuff. However, for the past few days, Gongzhu seemed to have taken the wrong medicine. Even though he had been beaten black and blue, and was even stepped on the ground a few days ago, he had lost all his face. If it were any other senior magi, they would have covered their sleeves and left long ago after being humiliated like this. Gongzhu was still shouting and fighting angrily. When he was kicked down, he would climb up, and when he was slapped, he would cover his face and rush forward. Even the two guards joined forces and beat Gongzhu until he rolled on the ground a few times. After losing 2 of his front teeth, Gongzhu jumped up again and spat out blood. He was furious and fighting. Oh my God! What happened to Gongzhu these few days? Why did he suddenly become so hot-blooded? Could this be the so-called trick of injuring oneself to gain sympathy? The harder Gongzhu is beaten now, the more sympathy he will get when the great sage returns. How shameless! Gongzhu, you bootlicker! How can you use such a shameless method? The few gold shamans who were watching the battle cursed angrily. Not only did they not sympathize with Gongzhu, they even looked at him with disdain. Zhu Gong was so angry that he let out an even angrier roar. He secretly suppressed his anger and said, "I'm not angry. I definitely can't be angry. What do they know? I'm saving myself. If people found out that I had not only become a traitor, but also helped the new human emperor sneak into the Grand Master's palace, the Grand Master would definitely use magic. How could these bastards understand my difficulties after torturing me to the point where I would rather die? However, I've been beaten like a dead dog for the past 10 days. Why hasn't the guy come out yet?" He didn't want to be angry, but as soon as he thought of Yi Fei's seemingly simple smile, the senior shaman of Gongzhu was so angry that black smoke rolled out of his head, and he let out an extremely angry roar. This roar startled the 2 gold shamans again. Then they shouted angrily, Gong Zhu, you've been beaten like a dead dog by us. How dare you still shout? Don't say anything. Continue to beat him to death. While Gong Zhu was distracted by his angry roar, the two gold-rank great shamans kicked Gong Zhu to the ground and started a new round of crazy punches and kicks. Gong Zhu felt like banging his head against the wall and killing himself. How dare you? I'm a gold-rank great shaman after all. How dare you push me to the ground and beat me up for 10 consecutive days? Yi, is this what you promised? After becoming a trader, I can eat and drink well and live like a master every day. Roar. Even though he was being beaten, the senior shaman of Gong Zhu was so angry that he let out an extremely angry roar. At this moment, a furious roar suddenly came from the shadow of the palace in the distance. You too! How dare you beat my good elder brother? Get lost! Boom! A golden cauldron appeared in the distance and smashed towards the face of a gold guard. The gold great shaman's face was distorted and his flesh was badly mangled. Then, a dazzling fist light smashed down and smashed another gold great shaman, causing him to vomit blood and fall back. His entire chest was smashed. A deep bloody hole was blasted in his chest. His face was filled with shock and fear. It's Shangjiao, as expected of the great sage's disciple. The Shangjiao is righteous and righteous. He's a true hero who values loyalty. Gong Zhu, this bootlicker, is so lucky to have such a strong brother. Seeing Yi Fei appear and forcefully save Gong Zhu, the surrounding gold shamans all gave him a thumbs up and praised Yi Fei for being righteous and responsible. Even Gong Zhu, who had been beaten up for 10 days, couldn't help but shed tears of regret when he suddenly saw Yi Fei descend from the sky and defeat the other party. Brother, you finally came out. Do you know how badly I was beaten up in the past 10 days? I was almost beaten to death. Yi Fei's face was cold as he lifted Gong Zhu up from the ground like a rag. He glared at the two gold shamans and said, Today's matter won't be forgotten so easily. Elder brother, let's go and welcome the great sage first. We'll talk about today's revenge later. In the future. Do you really think you're the great sage's disciple? You're really an idiot. The two severely injured gold shamans sneered at the same time. Although they didn't dare to attack Yi Fei, they didn't take Yi Fei seriously from the beginning. After all, those who were ordered to guard the Golden Palace were Chen Liang's absolute confidants. Their status was even higher than Gong Zhu's. Even if Yi Fei brought Gong Zhu to complain to Chen Liang, they wouldn't be afraid at all. When the nearby gold shamans saw that the commotion had ended, they turned their heads and focused their attention on the battle between the sorcerer gods behind the stone door. However, the battle between the sorcerer gods was far less intense than it was a few days ago. Compared to the experienced great sage Chen Liang, Jin Shi, who had just broken through to the sorcerer god level, was weaker in both battle strength and mental strength. After another terrifying confrontation, Jin Shi suddenly controlled the gold warship and retreated. He roared, Chen Liang, don't think that you can protect that bastard forever. I don't believe that you can do anything to us sorcerer gods. The revenge of killing my son is irreconcilable. Bastard inside, wait for me to come and take your head. Realizing that he might be suppressed if the battle continued, Jin Shi decisively retreated. He steered the gold warship into the void and flew directly in the direction of the Leaf Fire's Golden Palace. Obviously, Jin Shi planned to join forces with great sage Li Hua to deal with Chen Liang and kill Yi Fei. Hearing Jin Shi's words through the stone door, Yi Fei's face darkened. Jin Shi was already so terrifying as a sorcerer god. If he joined forces with sorcerer god Li Hua, wouldn't his life be in immediate danger? Gong Zhu was so scared that he sat on the ground again. He sent a voice transmission to Yi Fei, almost begging, Big brother, let's run. You've caused a disaster. You've offended 3 sorcerer gods at once. Chapter 1888. Shangjiao, quickly come to the palace to see me. Ignoring the other wizards, the first thing Chen Liang did after returning to Roland's palace was to ask Yi Fei to go to Roland's palace. Yi Fei's expression changed. He He knew that Jin Shi's threat had shaken Chun Liang's determination to protect him. Could it be that this old fox is planning to attack me in advance? But that's unlikely. If this old fox was willing to give up his wizard god realm, he would have attacked me long ago instead of waiting until now. It seems that there should be some restrictions if he wants to seize my wizard body. Unfortunately, the primordial scroll's spiritual text was too profound. In 10 days, Yi Fei was only able to roughly understand it. By then, Chun Liang and Jin Shi's battle had already ended. However, when Yi Fei thought of the fact that Jin Shi was able to fight against Chun Liang for 10 days straight after breaking through to the supreme magus level, Yi Fei's heart sank. Because of Shang Jiao, he and Jin Shi had become mortal enemies. The stronger Jin Shi was, the more disadvantageous it was for him. Shang Jiao, do you think I'm afraid of Jin Shi and Li Hua and plan to hand you over? On the throne, Chun Liang's eyes were cold. Due to the perfect cooperation of Xiao Chao and Ling Siki, as well as Gongzhu's trick, Chun Liang didn't discover his secret at all. Yi Fei had discovered it long ago. Yi Fei didn't hesitate. He directly cupped his hands and said, "Disciple doesn't dare. Disciple is just thinking about how to defeat Jin Shi and share the burden from Master and Roland's palace." Chun Liang's eyes flashed with a strange light. He nodded slightly and said, "It seems that I've wronged you. It's good that you can think this way. The key is, have you thought of how to deal with Jin Shi?" Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly felt that this was a good opportunity to test Chun Liang. He threw caution to the wind and said, "If I want to defeat Jin Shi, I have to break through to Wizard God. At that time, Master and I will join forces. Even if we face Jin Shi and Li Hua at the same time, we won't be afraid. Master, please help me break through to Wizard God." Humph! Breaking into the level of Supreme Magus is not that easy. Although you have the gold treasure, and you don't need to spend thousands or tens of thousands of years to upgrade your treasure like other magi, the most important thing for breaking into the level of Supreme Magus is not the gold treasure, but the Heaven Master origin. Yi Fei said in a low voice, "Then please grant me the Heavenly Venerate's essence, Master." Grand Monarch Chun Liang sneered and shook his head. "That's right, with my ability and status, I can indeed allow you to enter the Ancestral God Temple and obtain the Empyrean Source Core. But why should I help you? Do you know that every time you enter the Ancestral God Temple, you have to pay an enormous price? Jin Shi can become an ancestor god, Your Highness. It was he who disregarded his honor and married Li Hua's daughter, who is several thousand years older than him. What price can you pay to have me help you enter the Ancestral God Temple and obtain the Empyrean Source Core?" Yi Fei's expression was solemn. Only now did he know that Jin Shi could break through to the Sorcerer God level. What he relied on was not his own strength, but the secret help of his father-in-law. Does Master mean that I should also marry the daughter of a Sorcerer God? Yi Fei's expression immediately turned ugly, but Chun Liang's expression turned even uglier. He shouted angrily, "Bastard! You are the one recognized by us 12 sorcerer gods for marriage. If you marry the daughter of a sorcerer god, how can you marry a heavenly god? However, if you are willing to swear the great sorcerer oath and swear that you will never betray me, I can think of a way. I will send you into the Ancestral God Temple and obtain the Empyrean Source Core needed to break through to the sorcerer god level." As he spoke, there was a trace of strangeness in the depths of Chun Liang's eyes, as well as a trace of deeply hidden killing intent. If it were any other time, Yi Fei would never have sensed it. But ever since he saw the immemorial scroll, he understood Chun Liang's scheme. Yi Fei soon heard the thick killing intent in these words. "It seems that Chun Liang has made up his mind to take action against me under the pressure of Jin Shi. If I refuse now, Chun Liang may take action in advance. But if I don't refuse, once I swear the great sorcerer oath, my life and death will still be in Chun Liang's hands." Yi Fei's face was gloomy. He did not dare to speak carelessly. He only cupped his hands and said, "Master, your request is too sudden. Can you give me a few days to think about it?" "You only have 1 day to think about it. When the time comes, if you're still not completely loyal to me, then I have no choice but to chase you out of Roland's golden palace and no longer interfere in the grudge between you and Jin Shi. Shangjiu, take care of yourself, Chen Liang said earnestly. He waved his hand, indicating that Yi Fei could leave. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief and left with a heavy heart. He did not know that Chen Liang's gaze became more and more gloomy as he looked at his back. A trace of viciousness flashed across his eyes. Shangjiu, if you know what's good for you, then I can let you die quickly. If you don't, then I will make you wish you were dead. Men, call Zhu Zhu over for this senior. Telling Yi Fei the truth wasn't enough. Chen Liang was even more cunning. He called Gong Zhu in and asked Gong Zhu to report the details of what had happened to Yi Fei during this period of time. Not long after, Gong Zhu also left Roland's golden palace with a gloomy face. He went straight to Yi Fei's palace and said in a panic, "Big brother, we are doomed. Master suddenly asked about your whereabouts today. According to my understanding of Master, he is most likely going to do something to you. He has done it long ago. Just now, Chen Liang wanted me to enter the ancestral Magi Palace and break into the supreme Magus level. This is the signal for him to do it." Yi Fei's face was incomparably cold. Gong Zhu was overjoyed. "What? Master wants you to enter the ancestral God Palace? Is that old thing's brain broken? He actually wants you to enter the ancestral God Palace and break into the supreme Magus level. Big brother, this is great news. Great my ass. This old fox is indeed insidious. He wants me to swear the ancestral Magus oath. That way, even if I break into the supreme Magus level, I won't be able to resist him. My life and death will be in his hands." Yi Fei was incomparably angry. Xiao Chao and Ling Siki also looked distressed. Dragon Turtle was already looking around furtively, looking for the best escape route. Only Gong Zhu had an extremely strange expression when he saw Yi Fei and the others acting as if they were facing a great enemy. "It's just an oath, big brother. Isn't this what you human emperors are best at? You don't have to pay for tricking us to death." Gong Zhu sighed. "Get lost. Do you think I am as shameless as Wang Bai? Wait, Wang Bai. How could I almost forget that our human emperor palace does have a very good tradition? Second brother, thank you. I suddenly thought of a good idea. At least I have an 80% chance of deceiving that old fox. You're an old fox, but I still need your cooperation." Yi Fei looked at Gong Zhu with a very simple and bright smile. However, Gong Zhu felt a chill from head to toe. The last time Yi Fei showed such a smile, he was pressed to the ground and beaten for 10 days. This time, Yi Fei showed such a smile again. Gong Zhu immediately felt his legs go soft. However, before Gong Zhu's legs went soft, Yi Fei had already grabbed him and whispered to him. Seeing that Yi Fei was going to do something bad again and seemed to want to carry forward the good tradition of the human emperor palace, Xiao Chao and Ling Siki were very curious. Even Dragon Turtle quietly straightened its neck and cocked its ears. Chapter 1889. 9 Great Shamans of Shang Dynasty. The Great Sage invites you in. Chen Liang didn't give Yi Fei any chance to delay or escape. Early the next morning, 2 gold great shamans came knocking on the door and invited Yi Fei to the Roland's Golden Palace again. These 2 people were the 2 gold-ranked great sorcerers who had worked for Yi Fei violently and had looked down on him. At the same time, they were also his loyal subjects, his true confidants. Yi Fei's heart sank when he saw the 2 of them. Then, he smiled and said, "Thank you for your trouble." The 2 gold great shamans scowled coldly and didn't even bother to say a word to Yi Fei. They just coldly gestured for Yi Fei to walk in front. Yi Fei wasn't angry. There was no need for him to be angry at these 2 people who were about to die. He immediately took a step forward and walked out of his palace. Under the escort of the 2 gold great shamans, he came to Chen Liang's Roland's Golden Palace again. The other gold great shamans along the way also kept pointing at Yi Fei. Some blamed Yi Fei for being too arrogant and offending Jin Shi too ruthlessly. Some took pleasure in his misfortune and felt that Yi Fei, the great sage's disciple, was going to be finished soon. If he hadn't seen through Chen Liang's scheme, such a situation would have been enough to shake Yi Fei's confidence and make him panic as if he was about to be abandoned by the great shaman. Unfortunately, Yi Fei already knew about Chen Liang's scheme. At this moment, when he saw the tense atmosphere that Chen Liang deliberately created, Yi Fei only sneered and suppressed anger in his heart. However, when he entered the Roland's Golden Palace, Yi Fei still forced himself to show a terrified expression. This expression made Chen Liang very satisfied. After all, the more terrified Yi Fei was, the easier it would be for him to realize his scheme against Yi Fei. Looking at Yi Fei, Chen Liang's expression became very amiable for the first time. So, Shangjiu, have you thought it through? Are you staying or leaving? Yi Fei's face was bitter as he said, "Now, do I have any other choice? If I leave Roland's Golden Palace, Jean, she will never let me go. If I stay in Roland's Golden Palace and pledge my loyalty to Teacher, I still have a chance to break through to the level of Sorcerer God and take revenge on Jean Shi. Teacher, I've thought it through. I'm willing to pledge my loyalty to Teacher forever. But Shifu, you have to swear that you will help me break into the Supreme Magus level." "Haha, I thought it was nothing. You are my disciple. As long as you swear the ancestral sorcerer oath that you will never betray me, I will do my best to help you become the Sorcerer God. I, Chen Liang, can swear." Boom! In order to dispel Yi Fei's doubts, Chen Liang ignited his own golden treasures and made the most solemn ancestor Magus oath with his spiritual power. "I, Chen Liang, swear that if Shangjiu sincerely follows me and never betrays me, I, Chen Liang, will do my best to help Shangjiu break into the Supreme Magus level." The Sorcerer God's oath quickly alerted the ancestral sorcerer power that existed between the heavens and the earth. At the end of the void, a pair of special ancestral sorcerer eyes landed on Chen Liang, causing him to become much more imposing. He was like a kind teacher. Then, Chen Liang stared at Yi Fei with a strange look in his eyes. Yi Fei's scalp went numb. At this point, there was no way for him to shirk. He could only raise his hand in fear and burn his own golden treasures as he said, "I swear that if great sovereign Chen Liang can really help me break into the Supreme Magus level, I will not only acknowledge you as my only teacher, but I will also pledge my loyalty to you forever. Teacher, I will never betray you. Heaven and earth are my witnesses, and the ancestral gods are my witnesses." Boom! When Yi Fei swore loudly, a terrifying spiritual power appeared in his body. At the same time, a terrifying mind ripple was transmitted, triggering the ancestral wizard power that existed in the unseen world. Similarly, an ancestral wizard eye stared at Yi Fei's body. It meant that Yi Fei's oath was valid. For the first time, Chen Liang was so excited that his whole body trembled. He stared at Yi Fei as if he had discovered a rare treasure. He put his hands on Yi Fei's shoulders and said fervently, "Good, good. Shangjiu, I was right about you as my disciple. Don't worry, only you will not let me down. I will never let you down. What are you talking about, Master? I am your disciple, so I will naturally be filial to you forever." Yi Fei showed a very bright and simple smile. This made Chen Liang sigh with emotion. This child is a good and honest child. If he didn't happen to be a battle sorcerer and have the golden treasures, it would be a good thing to take in such a disciple. However, for my plan of breaking through to the Celestial Master level, he had to suffer. This child. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes, but on the surface, Chen Liang pretended to be amiable. He said in a deep voice, "Shangjiu, since you and I have resolved our differences, there is no time to lose. I will take you to the Ancestral God Palace to get the Celestial Master's origin. Remember, you only have half a year to cultivate in the palace. So, you must break through to the Divine Sorcerer level in half a year. Here, this is what I learned when I comprehended the origin and broke through to the Divine Sorcerer level. Take it and study it carefully." In order to help Yi Fei break through to the Divine Sorcerer level, Chen Liang appeared to be even more nervous than Yi Fei himself. He took out the techniques of comprehending the celestial master's origin, which the divine sorcerer would never divulge. Then, he was worried that Yi Fei's cultivation time was too short. Even if he had the golden treasures, he might overuse his spiritual power and waste this precious half a year. Chunliang made up his mind and took out a golden crystal. He handed it to Yi Fei and said, "This is the spiritual spring that I got from an ancient ruin. It is equivalent to the second golden treasure. It is the most precious treasure that I have. Take it with you. I look forward to the moment when you break through to the divine sorcerer level in half a year." "Master," Yi Fei was completely shocked. Even though he knew that Chunliang did not have good intentions toward him, he had never imagined that Chunliang would be so willing to spare no expense, and even lend him his most precious ancient treasure. It was obvious how anxious Chunliang was for Yi Fei to break through to the divine sorcerer level. As Yi Fei received the spiritual spring happily, a shy and embarrassed expression appeared on his face. Seeing this expression, Chunliang was even happier. He secretly mocked Yi Fei's stupidity, but on the surface, he acted like a compassionate teacher. He grabbed Yi Fei's arm affectionately and said, "Let's go. I will take you to see the most important divine temple of the sorcerer tribe." Boom! As Chunliang waved his hand, a teleportation portal that he had prepared beforehand appeared in front of Yi Fei. When Yi Fei stepped through the teleportation portal, he realized that he had arrived in a very dark space. At the end of the space, there was a mysterious and majestic temple floating in the air. This temple was 10,000 times bigger than the divine temple of the sorcerer. It was like a floating continent, shining with a dazzling golden light at the end. Chapter 1890. Boom! As the 100,000 magic crystals were sacrificed, the ancestor god altar flashed with a mysterious light. The mountain-like palace doors of the ancestor god palace opened completely at this moment. Yi Fei suppressed his excitement and rushed through the palace doors as fast as he could. Chunliang's face was full of love as he looked ahead. Only when Yi Fei's figure disappeared did Chunliang's expression turn vicious and gloomy. Damn it! If Jinshi hadn't broken through in advance, I wouldn't have suffered such a loss. Not only did I sacrifice 100,000 magic crystals, but I also gave Shang Jiao my spiritual source, which is like my life. Shang Jiao, if you still can't break through to the sorcerer god realm, I swear that I will torture you until you wish you were dead. You're neither human nor ghost. Obviously, the sacrifice of 100,000 magic crystals made a sorcerer god like Chunliang feel extremely pained. If not for the fact that Yi Fei had already sworn that his life and death was in his hands, Chunliang wouldn't have been willing to sacrifice so much. However, what Chunliang didn't know was that just as Yi Fei rushed into the ancestor god palace and closed the palace doors, Gongzhu had already rushed out of the beast-marked space excitedly. Heavens, the ancestor god palace. I, Gongzhu, actually have the chance to enter the ancestor god palace and obtain a heavenly venerate origin source. Big brother, from today onwards, you are my elder brother. Gongzhu was so excited that his speech was incoherent. Yi Fei could understand Gongzhu's feelings. After all, heavenly venerate origin source was extremely rare in this world. This was why only a small number of people were able to enter the supremacy realm. Under normal circumstances, even if Gongzhu was Chunliang's trusted aide, he wouldn't have a chance to enter the ancestor god palace in his lifetime. Thanks to Gongzhu hiding on me, I was able to successfully swear a fake ancestral sorcerer oath and deceive the old fox Chunliang. I hope that Chunliang will be able to hold back his anger after discovering the truth and not die from anger. Yi Fei looked at the spiritual source in his hand. He didn't stand on ceremony and destroyed the spiritual imprint within it on the spot. He had already refined this primordial treasure, which was equivalent to the second gold divine treasure, into his possession. In the void outside the palace, Chunliang immediately sensed it. He was so angry that his hair was about to explode on the spot. He roared furiously, "Evil creature, how dare you do this? This sovereign only lent you the spirit spring for a while. You evil creature, you actually took it for yourself. Chun Liang was so furious that he had the urge to rush into the ancestral god palace and beat Yi Fei to death on the spot. However, he quickly suppressed the anger in his heart and forcefully comforted himself. Don't be angry. I can't be angry over a person who is about to die. Anyway, that Shang Jiao has already sworn the ancestral witch oath that he will never die. If he betrays me, even if he has refined the spirit source, I can make him spit it out with interest at any time. As expected, Grand Monarch Chun Liang calmed down and sat cross-legged in midair again like an old monk meditating, trying to adjust himself to the best state. He was waiting for Yi Fei to break through to the supreme magus level in half a year, so that he could devour Yi Fei's divine treasures and transform himself from a weak magus to the strongest battle magus. Inside the ancestral god palace, Yi Fei quickly finished refining the spirit source in his hand. With a thought, the spirit source immediately merged with his golden divine treasure. Yi Fei felt that under the effect of the spirit source, his golden divine treasure seemed to have doubled in size. The strength of his mind power had also doubled. This was equivalent to Yi Fei having 2 golden divine treasures in his body at the same time. This was also more beneficial to his comprehension. The heavenly venerate's origin could refine the laws of nature. As for the tips and techniques that Grand Monarch Chun Liang had painstakingly given to Yi Fei to comprehend the heavenly venerate's origin, Yi Fei didn't even look at them. Yi Fei grabbed Xiao Qiao, who was still lying on the immortal crystal bed, and refused to get up out of the beast-marked space. Humph! No matter how much insight I have and how good my techniques are, there's still the difference between an ant and an elephant in front of Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao, come out and work. Squeak. Xiao Qiao was very disgruntled when he was dragged out and couldn't help burping. Evidently, Xiao Qiao hadn't had time to sleep and digest the mind power he had absorbed from the great Magus Gong Zhu with the spirit-striking whip. However, when Xiao Qiao discovered that Yi Fei had entered another space filled with heavenly venerate origin, Xiao Qiao's eyes lit up. He immediately opened his heaven and earth spiritual eye and grabbed at the illusory heavenly venerate origin. These heavenly venerate origin were like air. They couldn't be seen or touched. Even if the witch god wanted to refine them, he would have to spend a lot of time comprehending them. Only Xiao Qiao was an exception. Xiao Qiao's heaven and earth spiritual eye could clearly see these heavenly venerate origin. Then, like catching fish in water, he grabbed the heavenly venerate origin that was hidden between heaven and earth. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Xiao Qiao's happy laughter came from Yi Fei's side. It didn't take long for Xiao Qiao to successfully grab a hidden heavenly venerate origin and roll around on the ground happily. However, before Xiao Qiao had a chance to taste it, a certain black tortoise had already leaned over and licked Xiao Qiao. At the same time, it bit off half of the heavenly venerate origin that Xiao Qiao was holding. Even so, the dragon turtle was still worried. It quickly took out the black vat and threw the heavenly venerate origin into it. Finally, the dragon turtle climbed into the black vat and set up layers of seals to hide inside. It was as if it was afraid that the heavenly venerate origin would disappear again. Yi Fei and Ling Siqi's faces instantly darkened. The great Magus Gong Zhu's face was full of heartache. What a shameless black pig. By the way, little miss, since you can't eat this half of the heavenly venerate origin, why don't you give it to me? Gong Zhu pulled a long face and pitifully leaned over to Xiao Qiao's side. He hated that he couldn't wag his tail like the dragon turtle. Seeing how pitiful Gong Zhu was, Xiao Qiao generously handed over the remaining half of the heavenly venerate origin. Gong Zhu was moved to tears. This little girl is still the best. It seems that not everyone in the Human Emperor Palace is a bad person. After saying that, Gong Zhu smiled and held the half of the heavenly venerate origin. He also found a corner and began to refine it frantically. It felt like a vicious dog fighting for food. Yi Fei was puzzled. It's just a heavenly venerate origin. Do you have to be so excited? Xiao Qiao continued to grab it. This is not the human tribe's origin temple. We can grab as much as we want. There's no need to be polite with the sorcerer tribe. Xiao Chao's eyes lit up when he heard that they could grab the heavenly venerate origin at will. After all, these heavenly venerate origins could also increase the power of Xiao Chao's holy whip. Chapter 1891. 1 streak, 2 streaks, 3 streaks, 4 streaks, 10 streaks, 12 streaks. No energy could hide from Xiao Chao's heaven and earth spirit eye. Soon, all the heavenly venerate origins in the ancestral god temple had been grabbed by Xiao Chao. This made Yi Fei very puzzled. That's strange. Why are there only 12 streaks of heavenly venerate origins in the ancestral god temple? Xiao Chao, are you sure you've grabbed all of them? Xiao Chao did not speak. Instead, he tilted his head and looked around. After observing for a while, he unhappily gestured to Yi Fei that Xiao Chao had already grabbed all the heavenly venerate origins. There was not a single one left. Yi Fei certainly did not doubt Xiao Chao's words. His mood instantly became very bad. It seems that the sorcerer tribe still has a backup plan. This ancestral god temple should have some special restrictions that limit the number of heavenly venerate origins that can appear at one time. After all, heavenly venerate origins were extremely rare in this world. If one could enter the ancestral god temple, they could easily comprehend and refine the heavenly venerate origins. As long as one was willing to spend some time, any sorcerer god could devour all the heavenly venerate origins here. Therefore, the sorcerer gods of the past had set some restrictions on the ancestral god temple. The ancestral god temple could only open 12 streaks of heavenly venerate origins at one time. If the ancestral god temple exceeded this limit, the ancestral god temple would hide the heavenly venerate origins. This was the same principle as the origin sacred hall of the human tribe, which could only be opened once every 500 years. This was to prevent the heavenly venerate origins from drying up and cutting off the future generation's path to becoming supremes. Little Guogua, 12 streaks it is. Let's hurry up and split these heavenly venerate origins. Ling Siki could not wait any longer. Her face was filled with the excitement of looting heavenly venerate origins for the first time. It was obvious that she was being led astray by Yi Fei. Yi Fei immediately broke out in a sweat. After some discussion, Xiao Chao happily hugged the 2 streaks of heavenly venerate origins and returned to the beastmark space. It was not that Yi Fei did not want to give him more, but Xiao Chao was still young and his appetite was limited. 1/3 of a heavenly venerate's origin was enough to feed Xiao Chao for half a year. At this moment, Xiao Chao was already very satisfied to be able to hug 2 celestial venerate origins at the same time and eat before sleeping. Ling Siki's situation was similar. In the end, Ling Siki was still just a demigod. It was already very difficult for her to refine one Empyrean origin source. Yet, Yi Fei gave her 2. The little girl was so happy that she was jumping, screaming, and singing. She was chirping like a little bird. This scene made Grand Shaman Gongzhu's eyes redder than a rabbit's. If he had known earlier that Xiao Chao could capture so many celestial venerate origins, he wouldn't have swallowed his pride and only asked for half a celestial venerate origins. Seeing Gongzhu's red eyes filled with envy, Yi Fei thought about it and couldn't bear it in the end. He could only squeeze out half of the heavenly venerate origin and throw it over. Yi Fei finally threw the remaining half into the dragon turtle's huge black vat. In the end, Yi Fei hugged the remaining 6 heavenly venerate origins and sat down cross-legged on the ground to start refining them. Boom! As Yi Fei refined them, the undying sword soul in his body also let out an impatient cry. It seemed like it couldn't wait to devour all the heavenly venerate origins. Yi Fei was extremely depressed when he realized that the undying sword soul in his body was also a glutton for origins. Therefore, even though he had completely looted the ancestral god hall this time, Yi Fei still felt that the heavenly venerate origins were insufficient. However, the undying sword soul was his strongest trump card after all. Even if the heavenly venerate origins were insufficient, Yifei still gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He directly threw the two heavenly venerate origins into the vortex formed by the undying sword soul. Boom! After devouring the two heavenly venerate origins, Yifei clearly felt that the undying sword soul's aura had become even more violent. It even made him feel as if he couldn't control it. Yifei's expression changed instantly. He finally understood why the sword spirit in the sword soul had told him that he could only truly activate the undying sword soul when he reached the heavenly venerate level. Besides, the heavenly venerate origins needed to break the seal on the sword soul. The most important thing was that the destructive power hidden in the undying sword soul was too terrifying. Yifei had only allowed the undying sword soul to devour two heavenly venerate origins, but the power of the undying sword soul had increased from 1/10,000th to 1/10,000th. The destructive power contained in the sword chi was also equivalent to an attack from an earthly venerate. Yifei was only a gold-rank Grand Magus at the moment. His martial arts realm was a pitiful demigod. With such a low martial arts realm, Yifei naturally felt that it was extremely difficult for him to control the strongest martial arts realm. Looks like the most important thing now is to quickly comprehend the precepts and break through to become a sorcerer god. Yifei understood. He no longer cared about the desire that the undying sword soul transmitted to him and forcefully suppressed the undying sword soul in his dantian. After that, Yifei also began to frantically refine the remaining 4 heavenly venerate origins in his hands. Time passed continuously as Yifei refined the heavenly venerate origins. Very quickly, 3 months had passed. 4 months had also passed. Soon, it was the 5th month. Yifei, who was originally sitting cross-legged like a golden statue, suddenly had a terrifying roar coming from his body. Then, the 4 heavenly venerate origins that Yifei had refined all turned into extremely violent energy and surged wildly into the golden deity. Hidden within, sorcerers were different from martial artists. In order for martial artists to break through to the next level, they needed a long period of cultivation and had to go through terrifying heavenly tribulations. Every step forward required them to go against the heavens and risk their lives to obtain the greatest power. On the other hand, sorcerers did not have souls, so their cultivation did not require them to go through heavenly tribulations. As long as the level of the deity's treasure reached a certain level and they had mastered the corresponding level of sorcery, the sorcerer's level would naturally increase. This was the case for Yifei now. He already possessed the golden deity's treasure that was comparable to a sorcerer god's, and he also possessed the strongest battle sorcerer's path that Shang-Jio had passed down. Therefore, Yifei did not need to spend thousands or even tens of thousands of years like other sorcerers to condense the golden deity's treasure and cultivate 12 powerful sorcery techniques. As long as he had enough heavenly venerate origins and could comprehend the 4 precepts of heaven and earth, Yifei would naturally be able to break through to the 4th level of his battle sorcerer's body from the 3rd level. It would also allow the strength of his physical body to reach the level of a semi-venerable weapon from a divine weapon. A semi-venerable weapon was a battle sorcerer's body that was comparable to a human earthly venerate. It was also the key to allowing Yifei to break through to become a sorcerer god from a gold sorcerer. Therefore, when Yifei successfully comprehended the 4 precepts and integrated them into his body and stepped into the 4th level of his battle sorcerer's body, Yifei's level had officially advanced from a gold sorcerer to a sorcerer god. Just like Jin Shi, when Yifei stepped into the supreme venerate and broke through to become a sorcerer god, the entire world let out a violent roar. Chapter 1892. That's great. I've been waiting for this day, for a chance to break through and become a celestial venerable. In the Archean age, battle wizards were the strongest and were on par with the earthly venerables of the human race. Unfortunately, that old bastard, Dark Lord, destroyed our battle wizard sect and misled us into thinking that we could only cultivate the weak magic wizard and weapon wizard sect. We lost the chance to compete with the human and earthly venerables and fight against that old bastard, Dark Lord. But it doesn't matter. I, Chun Liang, will revive the declining battle wizard sect. When I devour Shang Jiao and transform my body of sorcerer into the body of battle sorcerer, I, Chun Liang, will lead the sorcerer tribe to reappear the glory of the ancient times and dominate this world. When that time comes, Dark Lord will kneel at my feet and repent. The more Qin Liang thought about it, the more excited he became. The ambition that had been suppressed in his chest for tens of thousands of years was completely aroused at this moment. If it weren't for the fact that Yi Fei still couldn't walk out of the ancestral god temple after half a year, Chun Liang couldn't wait to devour Yi Fei and completely possess Yi Fei's battle wizard body. Inside the ancestral god temple, Yi Fei could clearly feel the surging mind power in his body after breaking through to the wizard god level. If the golden treasure in his body was a vast ocean before he broke through to the wizard god level, then now, Yi Fei's golden treasure was a boundless starry sky. The wizard god's majestic mind power formed a terrifying nebula that whizzed and rotated behind Yi Fei. Then, it condensed into a special triangular star pattern that appeared between Yi Fei's eyebrows. This pattern was the symbol of Yi Fei breaking through to the wizard god level. Moreover, Yi Fei wasn't an ordinary wizard god, but a powerful battle wizard. Unlike magic wizards and weapon wizards, who relied on the power of heaven and earth, battle wizards walked the most orthodox martial path and cultivated mind power martial arts. A powerful battle wizard's combat power was definitely on par with the earthly venerables of the human race. However, I can't let my guard down. The reason why I was able to break through to the supreme magus level was because of the gold treasure left to me by Shang Jiao. I've only been cultivating for less than 100 years, while all the supreme powerhouses like the human gods and Empyrean gods are old monsters who have cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Even the sorcerer gods, who were slightly weaker than them, most of them have mastered many powerful god-level spells. Although these god-level shaman arts were not as powerful as earthly venerable arts, they were several times or even dozens of times stronger than immemorial heavenly arts. When he thought of this, Yi Fei's expression could not help but become much more solemn. Although breaking through to the wizard deity stage was very exciting, this was also the best opportunity for Chun Liang to kill and seize the battle wizard physique. If I don't want Chun Liang to succeed, I won't be able to defeat Chun Liang with only the ancient divine art. If I want to protect myself, I have to have the power to resist a god-level magic. A cold beam of light flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. Soon, he came up with a plan that wasn't really a plan. He did not have any god-level shaman arts, but he had the two supreme techniques, Dutian Phaseless Disaster and 8-level Heavenly Dragon. Since the battle skills of the battle wizard and the ancient divine art of martial artists could be used together, then if he used his spiritual energy to perform these two supreme techniques, would he be able to unleash a power similar to a god-level shaman art? When he had this thought, Yi Fei could not help but fall into a frenzied state of cultivation. Like a martial arts fanatic, he laughed at times, frowned at times, muttered to himself at times, and strode forward at times. Ling Siki and the great shaman Gongzhu were stunned. Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle were used to it. They were not surprised that Yi Fei would fall into a frenzy when he cultivated. At this moment, Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle were very full. They lay on the ground laboriously, trying their best to refine the majestic power source in their bodies. More than 10 days had passed like this. Suddenly, Yi Fei stopped dancing like a madman. A terrifying spiritual wave began to appear on his body. Roar! Then, these spiritual waves evolved into 6 spiritual heavenly dragons under Yi Fei's control. At the same time, these heavenly dragons exuded a strong aura of laws. These 6 laws were the lightning law, slaughter law, mountain law, swamp law, water law, and fire law. As for Yi Fei's sword law, he could not integrate it into the 8-level heavenly dragon due to their different attributes. Even so, when Yi Fei integrated the laws into this heavenly venerate technique, the power of the 8th-level heavenly dragon instantly rose from the level of an ancient divine art to that of a supreme technique. It's a pity that the 8th-level heavenly dragon can only be unleashed to its full power by using the primordial spirit. If I use my spiritual energy to activate it, I can only unleash 60% of the power of a supreme technique. I wonder how this power compares to the god-level shaman art cultivated by the sorcerer god. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, Yi Fei could not resist the urge to find someone to try it out. He quickly thought of the best candidate, and that was great sovereign Chun Liang, who was still daydreaming outside the ancestral god palace. Chun Liang, since you harbor ill intentions towards me and intend to steal my battle shaman body, then I can only disregard our relationship as master and send you on your way. Gongzhu, let's go. Ling Siki protects Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle. This time, Yi Fei did not hide. Moreover, after breaking through to the sorcerer god level, he was already standing at the peak of this world. There was no need to hide at all. Boom! The door of the ancestral god palace was pushed open. Then, Yi Fei strode out with the majestic aura of a sorcerer god. Chun Liang, who had been waiting anxiously for a long time, immediately felt Yi Fei's aura, which was far more powerful than that of an ordinary sorcerer god. He was even more ecstatic. When he saw Yi Fei, he shouted in a deep voice, "Shang Jiao, you really did not disappoint me. Now, kneel on the ground immediately and open your golden treasure. I want to see your battle shaman's golden treasure." Standing at the door of the ancestral god palace and facing the hypocritical sorcerer god Chun Liang again, Yi Fei's face was only filled with coldness and disgust. "Chun Liang, who do you think you are? Do you think I'll kneel just because you asked me to? Why don't you kneel first? Since you helped me enter the ancestral god palace, I can spare your life." "Bastard, what did you say? If I hadn't spared no expense to send you into the ancestral god palace, you wouldn't have achieved what you have today. You bastard, you've just become a sorcerer god and haven't even learned a god-level sorcerer spell. How dare you betray your master and betray your ancestors? Shangjiu, don't forget that you swore an ancestral sorcerer oath to never betray me in your life. Don't even mention kneeling. Even if I ask you to lie on the ground and bark like a dog, you'll do it. Kneel before me now." Boom. Seeing that Yi Fei seemed to have grown up, Chun Liang was enraged. Without thinking, he directly invoked the ancestral sorcerer oath that Yi Fei had once swore to make Yi Fei kneel on the ground and submit. Yi Fei's expression didn't change. He only looked at Chun Liang mockingly. At the same time, behind him, Gongzhu, Ling Siki, Xiao Qiao, and the dragon turtle were all looking at Chun Liang with strange expressions. During this time, Chun Liang had used all his strength to invoke the ancestral sorcerer oath several times in a row in an attempt to control Yi Fei. However, Yi Fei hadn't been punished by the ancestral sorcerer oath at all. It was only then that Chun Liang realized that the ancestral sorcerer oath that Yi Fei had swore was fake, and he had been completely fooled. This made Chun Liang, who prided himself on being resourceful, turn livid. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1893. The more Chun Liang spoke, the angrier he became. He was so angry that he coughed up blood continuously. Enraged, Grand Monarch Chun Liang morphed into a flaming stone golem king. He extended his enormous stone finger, which shot out a beam of star-like finger light that pierced through the void and landed on Yi Fei. Sorcery, star finger. Boom! The starry light condensed by the stone finger was so fast that Yi Fei couldn't dodge in time. His body was completely engulfed by the light of the sorcery. Only now did Chun Liang feel a little better. However, when he thought about how much he had to pay in order to help Yi Fei break through to the sorcerer god level, he realized that he had almost paid a huge price. Yi Fei had successfully fooled him with a fake sorcerer oath. Chun Liang was suddenly furious, as if his dignity had been insulted. Shangjiu, if I don't skin you alive and grind your bones to dust today, I won't be called Chun Liang. Bang! The stone light that filled the sky suddenly scattered in all directions. A ferocious figure slowly walked out of the void that Chun Liang's stone finger had pierced through. Yi Fei's entire body emitted strong spiritual fluctuations, as if he was wearing a layer of special armor. This was the terror of a battle sorcerer. His physical body was comparable to a pseudo-venerable artifact, so Yi Fei's physical defense at the supremacy level was extremely strong. Unless Chun Liang had the strength to pierce through a pseudo-venerable artifact with a single blow, Chun Liang wouldn't be able to kill Yi Fei instantly. Sorcery is just so. Chun Liang, haven't you always wanted to devour my golden treasure and become a battle sorcerer? Now, I'll fulfill your wish and let you know the terror of a battle sorcerer. Dazzling golden fist light suddenly erupted from Yi Fei's hands. It devoured the void, shattered the stars, and continuously punched through the void toward Chun Liang's body. Chun Liang was greatly shocked. How did you know that I wanted to steal your battle shaman body? Gongzhu, was it you who helped him enter the Roland's Golden Palace? You actually dared to betray me. Ah, why did I choose a bootlicker like you back then? Chun Liang was, after all, a commoner magus. He was a peerless magus who had walked step by step to become a sorcerer god. Through the clues, he recalled that Gongzhu had once caused a ruckus outside the Roland Palace. Chun Liang finally realized that Yi Fei must have snuck into his Roland Palace and discovered the secret of the immemorial scroll. And the person who covered Yi Fei's entrance was definitely the worker. Grand Venerate Chun Liang was so enraged that he extended a stone finger and jabbed it at Zhu Gong, intending to kill the traitor right away. After discovering Chun Liang's intentions, Yi Fei sneered. Using the Parish God combat skill was just a trick he used to confuse Chun Liang. Seeing that Chun Liang had fallen for it, he even diverted his attention to deal with Zhu Gong. Yi Fei growled and finally stopped hiding. The golden fist radiance that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the 6 terrifying heavenly law dragons roared and pounced forward. Chun Liang's face immediately revealed a look of extreme shock. That's impossible. I've investigated. The battle sorcerer Dao that Shangjiu obtained in the end was incomplete. There was no battle sorcerer divine combat skill in it. How could you have learned a divine combat skill? As he spoke, Chun Liang's hands suddenly turned into huge stone palms. He pushed them forward, and a huge crystal appeared in front of him. It formed a mirror image and caused Yi Fei's heavenly law dragons to stagnate, unable to move. Yi Fei couldn't help but be shocked. He shouted in a low voice, "You sorcerer gods really can't be underestimated. If you hadn't harbored evil intentions towards me, I really wouldn't have wanted to be your enemy." Kill. Duqian Phaseless Tribulation. Seeing that his heavenly law dragons were being suppressed, Yi Fei didn't hesitate. He used the 8-level heavenly dragons and the Duqian Phaseless Tribulation. The Duqian Phaseless Tribulation. The terrifying finger radiance carried with it a terrifying divine light that could destroy the world. It pierced through the void and also through the mirror in front of him. Even more shocked, Grand Monarch Chun Liang suddenly roared at Yi Fei. "Damn it, you're not using a battle skill, but the Duqian Phaseless Tribulation finger. Who the hell are you? Show me your true face." Whoosh! Grand Monarch Chun Liang completely opened his golden treasure trove. Terrifying spiritual fluctuations tore through the void like the sharp claws of a monster and viciously grabbed at Yi Fei. Yi Fei's exposed martial arts finally made Grand Monarch Chun Liang suspect Yi Fei's identity. At the same time, as a veteran sorcerer god, Grand Monarch Chun Liang's god-grade sorcerer spells were each more terrifying than the last. When these sorcerer spells were cast consecutively, the void showed signs of collapsing. With a final boom, the void finally couldn't withstand the pressure of the sorcerer god and shattered layer by layer like a block of ice. At this moment, Yi Fei stood in the middle of the shattered void and stared coldly at Grand Monarch Chun Liang. "Who am I? I'm the new emperor you're looking for. Chun Liang, didn't you collude with the heavenly gods to kill me?" I'm standing right in front of you now. Let's see how you're going to kill me. Boom. He allowed the terrifying spiritual claws to tear at his body. His body, which was comparable to a pseudo-venerable artifact, perfectly blocked the attack of the god-grade sorcerer spell. At the same time, the moment Yi Fei revealed his identity, he had already taken the bombardment of Chen Liang's sorcerer spell head-on. He used the Great Void technique and rushed from thousands of meters away to less than 10 meters away from Chen Liang. Chen Liang felt a chill run down his spine. His expression changed drastically as he shouted, "Sorcerer spell! Freeze, restrict, trap, destroy." This was the sorcerer spell. It used words to activate the power of heaven and earth to restrict the enemy's movements, seal the enemy's cultivation, bind the enemy's hands and feet, and destroy the enemy's spirit. As a veteran sorcerer god who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years, Grand Monarch Chen Liang had used this god-grade sorcerer spell to perfection. Even a sorcerer god of the same level would be restricted and immobilized by this sorcerer spell. Unfortunately, Yi Fei didn't walk the path of an ordinary sorcerer god. Instead, he walked the path of a battle sorcerer, which was comparable to the martial Tao. Although Grand Monarch Chen Liang had sealed his spirit and divine treasures, Yi Fei had already broken free of the sorcerer spell's power like a violent dragon with his body, which was comparable to a pseudo-venerable artifact. His sorcerer spell was shattered. Then, Yi Fei used the peerless heaven tribulation in one hand and the 8-level heavenly dragon in the other. The two supreme cultivation techniques burst forth at the same time. His majestic spirit power suppressed Grand Monarch Chen Liang like a raging furnace. Damn it, you're a human. How dare you sneak into the sorcerer tribe and cultivate to become a sorcerer god? I hate you so much. Shameless human emperor, I'm going to kill you today. Chen Liang spat out a large amount of essence blood in anger. His entire body suddenly grew 10 times larger. He looked like the huge stone statue Yi Fei had seen in the river of time and space. His huge palms were like two terrifying millstones that could obliterate heaven and earth. They smashed Yi Fei's heavenly dragon of laws and the peerless heaven tribulation finger into pieces. So what if you become a sorcerer god? When I dominated the world, you were still wetting your bed. You're too lazy to fight me, human emperor. Chen Liang sneered. It wasn't enough for him to smash the heavenly dragon of laws and the peerless heaven tribulation finger. Taking advantage of the fact that Yi Fei's martial arts had been broken and he couldn't reform them in a short time, Chen Liang suddenly roared. His huge body grew even larger, and he slammed it toward Yi Fei with murderous intent. Yi Fei's face also broke into a victorious smile. Chen Liang, you're wrong. It's not that I'm too inexperienced, it's that you're too old. Undying Sword Soul, kill him. Boom. Yi Fei's 8-level heavenly dragon and the peerless heaven tribulation finger were still feints. After all, these two supreme cultivation techniques couldn't display their true power without the use of true yuan. Therefore, Yi Fei's strongest move was the hidden Undying Sword Soul. Even if the Undying Sword Soul could unleash 1,000th of its power, it was still very terrifying. It was equivalent to an attack from an earthly venerate. An earthly venerate was already several times stronger than a sorcerer god. Now that Yi Fei had suddenly given up on his martial arts and unleashed an attack that was comparable to an earthly venerate, Chen Liang was instantly caught off guard. A terrifying ray of destructive light instantly pierced through Chen Liang's raised palms. It quickly pierced through the sorcerer god symbol on Chen Liang's forehead. Finally, the destructive sword light pierced through Chen Liang's head and destroyed the void behind him. Chapter 1894. The Venerable One is Dead. Seeing Chen Liang's huge headless stone statue floating in the void, Gong Zhu was the most shocked. He had followed Chen Liang for a long time and knew how terrifying the sorcerer god was. Even Jinshi was no match for Chen Liang when he had just broken through to the sorcerer god level. In the end, he could only retreat with hatred in his heart. Therefore, when he saw Yi Fei kill Qin Liang in a few dozen moves, Gong Zhu was even more shocked. There was also a terrifying thought that even he could not believe. How can a battle sorcerer be so powerful? Could it be that the most powerful sorcerer sect is actually the battle sorcerer sect that was looked down upon the most? Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He glanced at Gong Zhu and said in a low voice, "Gong Zhu, you're right. The most powerful sorcerer sect is the battle sorcerer sect." As he spoke, Yi Fei's body swayed. Majestic spiritual waves once again filled the entire starry sky and imprisoned the huge headless stone statue in front of him. Gong Zhu was shocked once again. With his eyesight as a gold great wizard, he could naturally tell that Yi Fei had used up all of his strength to kill Qin Liang with his sword. Logically speaking, even if Yi Fei had become a sorcerer god, he should have been completely exhausted. This was all thanks to Yi Fei refining the spiritual spring that Qin Liang had given him. The spiritual spring was equivalent to a second gold divine treasure. It was also Qin Liang's most precious treasure. In the end, Yi Fei had refined it and taken it for himself. Not only did he have a physical body that was comparable to a half-venerable weapon, but he also had spiritual power that was twice as strong as other sorcerer gods. If Qin Liang knew about this in the underworld, he would probably die of anger again. Therefore, even though Yi Fei had used all the power of the gold divine treasure to activate the indestructible sword soul, he was still full of energy due to the existence of the spiritual spring. At this moment, his spiritual power completely enveloped the stone statue that Qin Liang had died in battle. With a boom, the sturdy stone statue of the sorcerer god collapsed completely. It turned into dust. Then, a beating heart that looked like gold fell into Yi Fei's hands. This was the gold divine treasure that belonged to a sorcerer sect, and it was a supreme Magus-level gold treasure. When Gong Zhu saw the divine treasure, his face suddenly showed a crazy look of ecstasy. At this time, he suddenly knelt down in the air and kowtowed to Yi Fei desperately. "Big brother, no, great sage, master, Gong Zhu begs master to have mercy on me and give me the golden divine treasure. I swear that I will be loyal to master and the human sovereign palace for all eternity. I will never betray." Boom! The ancestral Magus sensed that a mysterious heaven and earth altar appeared at the end of the void once more. Within the vortex of the altar, a ghastly eye of the ancestral Magus appeared and stared at Zhu Gong, representing the establishment of Zhu Gong's oath. Yi Fei was also very surprised as he looked at Gong Zhu. He didn't expect Gong Zhu to be so ruthless towards himself. If Gong Zhu still had a way out after swearing the blood oath, then after swearing this oath, Gong Zhu had no way to go back. But after swearing this oath, which was equivalent to unconditional loyalty, Gong Zhu had no way of going back. However, Yi Fei did not reject Gong Zhu's complete loyalty. After all, the war between the human tribe and the sorcerer tribe could not continue forever. At this time, if he could instigate a supreme Magus in the sorcerer tribe to become a traitor, then it would be very beneficial for ending the war between the human tribe and the sorcerer tribe and eliminating the dark lore behind the scenes. Besides, other than Gong Zhu, Yi Fei could not think of anyone else to give this gold divine treasure to. After all, the gold divine treasure was only useful to sorcerers. After thinking about it, he could only give it to Gong Zhu. When he handed over the gold divine treasure, Yi Fei's expression suddenly became gloomy. "Gong Zhu, listen carefully. I can accept your loyalty and help you become a supreme Magus. But if I know that you dare to target the human tribe and kill the innocent, I will give you whatever I can give you. Master, don't worry. Gong Zhu promises that I will never kill a single human tribe member in the future." Gong Zhu threw caution to the wind. After all, becoming a supreme Magus was the lifelong pursuit of all sorcerers. Gong Zhu did not want to give up this opportunity, no matter the price. Only then did Yi Fei nod his head in satisfaction. He helped Gong Zhu up and said, "If you don't betray me, I won't betray you. Gong Zhu, from today onwards, you and I will still be brothers. I'm the big brother, and you're the second brother. Thank you, big brother. Gong Zhu choked with sobs. Originally, he had made a vicious oath and decided to be a servant. In the end, Yi Fei still treated him as a brother and gave him the greatest amount of respect. Gong Zhu suddenly felt that following Yi Fei was a very good thing. Then, Gong Zhu suddenly thought of something and his expression changed. Big brother, this is bad. Many great sorcerers in the Roland's palace have signed an oath of loyalty with me. Now that I'm dead, they must have sensed it. Damn, why didn't you say so earlier? Yi Fei was very depressed. He had no choice but to kill Chen Liang. However, he had to keep the Roland's palace safe. Yi Fei did not want to expose his identity and be hunted down by the other Supreme Magi. Most importantly, Yi Fei still planned to use Chen Liang's Roland's palace to continue the marriage alliance with the Supreme Magi and take the opportunity to rescue Zhao Yu and Lu Qing. Immediately, Yi Fei waved his hand and grabbed Gong Zhu. At the same time, he tore open the boundless void in front of him with one hand. Xiao Qiao, Dragon Turtle, and Ling Siki also hurriedly returned to the beast-marked space. Fortunately, although Supreme Magus Chen Liang was dead, the transmission stone door he left behind was still operating. Yi Fei stepped through the stone door and instantly appeared in the Roland's palace. At this time, the Roland's palace was in chaos, just as Gong Zhu had expected. After all, every Supreme Magus would have some absolutely trusted subordinates. These subordinates had sworn an oath of loyalty to a Supreme Magus. Once the Supreme Magus they were loyal to died in battle, and the oath of the Supreme Magus was lifted, they would definitely sense something. When Yi Fei appeared in the palace, there were about a dozen gold rank magi gathered in the palace. These gold rank magi were absolutely trusted subordinates of Chen Liang. At this time, they were gathered around the stone door and discussing the matter of the vow of the Supreme Magus being lifted. When they suddenly saw Yi Fei and Gong Zhu appear at the same time, these gold great shamans were shocked. Then, two furious roars came from the two great shamans who were guarding the Roland's golden palace. Wu Yi was one of Chen Liang's trusted aides who could be used to guard the Roland's golden palace. When they saw that Chen Liang had entered the stone door with Yi Fei and headed to the ancestral god palace, but it was Yi Fei and Gong Zhu who came out, they shouted angrily, "Gong Zhu, why are you here? Shangjiu, what happened to the Supreme Magus? Did you do something to the Supreme Magus? You know what Chen Liang did to me. Now, I can tell you with certainty that Chen Liang wanted to harm me and has been killed by me. From now on, I will be in charge of this Roland's palace. There are only two paths left for you. You can either submit or die." Since he couldn't hide it, Yi Fei didn't hide it anymore. Moreover, they were in the enemy's camp. He had to be decisive. If he hesitated, it would only spoil the plan. His words instantly enraged the dozen or so gold-rank great shamans. "Shangjiu, T. Who do you think you are? You're just a pig reared by the Supreme Magus. Do you think you have the ability to kill the Supreme Magus? Hurry up and get down from the throne. Tell us honestly what happened to the Supreme Magus." Chapter 1895. Boom. None of the gold wizards present had expected that Gong Zhu would be the first to attack instead of Yi Fei. Their faces were filled with shock. Is this bootlicker Gong Zhu crazy? He's just the weakest among us. How dare he betray the great sage and attack us? Listen what he said just now. Ninth great sage Shang, what a joke. Since Gong Zhu wants to die, we'll fulfill his wish. Those who could become Gong Zhu's trusted aides were undoubtedly the best among the gold wizards, especially the two who were guarding the palace gate. They had the battle prowess of an upper-level martial god. Half a year ago, they had joined forces to pin Gong Zhu to the ground and beat him up for 10 days. At this moment, seeing that Gong Zhu actually did not know what was good for him and came forward to be tortured again, they all laughed sinisterly and joined hands to attack him again. Merely, this time around, they were no longer planning to beat Gong Zhu to a pulp. Instead, they decided to directly beat this traitor to death on the spot. Seeing the two of them attacking, the other gold wizards all laughed sinisterly and rushed toward Yi Fei. "Shangjiu, you'd better not resist. Otherwise, with so many of us, we might beat you to death if we're not careful." Yi Fei couldn't help but smile and said in a deep voice, "Beat me to death? How arrogant. I'll just stand here and let you beat me." Facing these gold wizards, Yi Fei didn't attack. He just put his hands behind his back and let the countless sorcery spells drown him. As for the gold wizards who were attacking Yi Fei, they all looked at Yi Fei in shock and fear. What did they see? Under the joint attack of more than 10 gold wizards, Yi Fei didn't move at all and wasn't injured at all. How is this possible? Even if he's a battle wizard, how can he withstand the sorcery spells of so many of us by himself? Unless he's a sorcerer god like the great sage. Finally, a gold wizard remembered how Gong Zhu addressed Yi Fei. At first, they took it as a joke and didn't take it to heart. It wasn't until they attacked Yi Fei that they realized in shock that the young man standing in front of them was brimming with energy. He was so similar to a sorcerer god. They were very similar. No, strictly speaking, the pressure that Yi Fei was exuding right now was even more terrifying than that of an ordinary sorcerer god. After all, Yi Fei was the most powerful battle shaman. Sorcerer god. He is the sorcerer god. Boom! These gold shamans attacked quickly, but they retreated even faster. There were also a few smart ones who tried to escape from Roland's Golden Palace. However, before they could escape, Yi Fei had already attacked coldly. Do Tian phaseless tribulation carried a destructive finger light as it pierced through the foreheads of 2 gold shamans. "Surrender or die." Yi Fei looked at these great shamans and said in a deep voice, "I'll give you 3 breaths. If I kill all of you, there will still be other gold great shamans who will pledge their loyalty to me." Yi Fei tried his best to imitate Shang Jiu's expression and actions, and there was a hint of madness and killing intent in his gloominess. Sensing Yi Fei's killing intent, the faces of the remaining 9 gold great wizards turned ghastly pale. It had not been easy for them to become gold great wizards and become existences comparable to gods in this world. However, no one was willing to die just like that. These gold great wizards were no exception. I surrender. 9th Venerable Shang, please spare our lives. We were wrong." The 2 gold great wizards with the weakest willpower knelt down in front of Yi Fei on the spot to show their allegiance. With one of them taking the lead, the other 7 gold great wizards also knelt down in fear. Bang! At the same time they knelt down, 2 loud explosions suddenly came from the Golden Palace not far away. Gong Zhu had miraculously killed the 2 golden great shamans, who were comparable to upper martial gods, in a 1 versus 2 situation. How is this possible? All the gold shamans who were still alive had an extremely shocked expression on their faces. After all, half a year ago, Gong Zhu was still pressed to the ground and beaten by these 2 people. How is this not possible? Gong Zhu has already entered the ancestral god palace and obtained the heavenly venerate's origin. I also gave the golden divine treasure that I obtained from killing Chun Liang to Gong Zhu. If he still can't defeat me, he should find a piece of tofu and kill himself," Yi Fei said coldly. Upon hearing Yi Fei's words and seeing the proud and high-spirited Gong Zhu, one of the gold great wizards suddenly came to his senses and immediately swore with red eyes. 9th Venerable Shang, I am willing to swear that I will be loyal to you for life. If I go against my words, let my divine treasure collapse, and I die. 9th Venerable Shang, I have eyes but failed to recognize your greatness. You must accept me. Venerable Shang, I am much more useful than that bootlicker Gong Zhu. I am willing to be loyal to you for life. With Gong Zhu as an example, these gold great wizards who wanted nothing more than to break through to the wizard deity level all fought to show their loyalty to Yi Fei. Yi Fei did not stop these gold great wizards from swearing their loyalty. After all, he also needed his own strength in the sorcerer tribe. However, this did not mean that Yi Fei would nurture these people like how he nurtured Gong Zhu. He did not have the time nor the energy to do so. Seeing that the biggest hidden danger in Roland's Golden Palace had been eliminated, Yi Fei did not continue to stay. He directly pushed the high throne away and said, "Gongzhu, I will leave these people to you. Remember, I do not wish for any internal strife to occur in Roland's Golden Palace. As for those gold great wizards who did not sign the ancestral wizard's oath, I will leave them to you." Once again, he walked into Chun Liang's real Roland's Golden Palace. This scene also made the other gold great wizards extremely shocked. Obviously, even these former confidants did not know that Chun Liang was hiding in Roland's Golden Palace. Then, Gongzhu became agitated. He understood that Yi Fei's order was not without a test. Gongzhu immediately used 120% of his energy and shouted at the gold great wizards, "Everyone, did you not hear Venerable Shang's order? Immediately take action and pacify the other great wizards in Roland's Golden Palace. If any turmoil in Roland's Golden Palace attracts the attention of the other wizard deities, there is no need for Venerable Shang to take action. I, Gongzhu, will tear you apart." Walking into this hidden Roland's Golden Palace again, Yi Fei could not help but be shocked by its luxurious appearance. Then, he saw that there were many fewer spirit dragons in the Roland's Golden Palace. Obviously, most of the spirit dragons had been refined into magic crystals by Venerable Chun Liang and sacrificed when he opened the ancestral God Palace. However, the remaining magic crystals still made the entire Roland's Golden Palace look dazzling. It also made Xiao Chao pull the dragon turtle's tail and run out, pouncing on those spirit dragons. Of course, Xiao Chao was purely grabbing those spirit dragons to play with. The dragon turtle, on the other hand, was sneakily attacking those spirit dragons. Chapter 1896. The Archean Scroll was still as heavy as a mountain. Even though Yi Fei had already broken through to the Sorcerer God realm, it was still difficult for him to pick up this scroll. This made Yi Fei very depressed. He originally wanted to take this scroll with him, but now it seemed impossible for him to do so. That's true. If this scroll could be kept, Grand Sovereign Chun Liang would definitely carry it with him. He wouldn't have left it here and let me see it. If I want to keep this scroll, I'll have to have the strength of a heavenly venerable like the Archean sorcerers to erase the spiritual imprint on it. Yi Fei quickly gave up on the idea of taking away the primordial scroll and began to concentrate on comprehending the last third of the primordial scroll's contents. What surprised him was that the last part of the primordial scroll was actually a combat skill. This combat skill was called the Celestial Star Palm. The god-killing fist that Grand Sovereign Chun Liang had given Yi Fei was actually comprehended from this god-level combat skill. However, Grand Sovereign Chun Liang was a sorcerer and couldn't use combat skills. Therefore, Grand Sovereign Chun Liang had given the god-killing fist to Yi Fei as a test. I didn't expect that the god-killing fist was only a part of the Celestial Star Palm. Grand Sovereign Chun Liang had indeed left something behind. Fortunately, I've broken through to the Sorcerer God level and can finally master this God-level combat skill. Yi Fei was very excited. Combat skills were different from sorcery. Even if sorcery reached the God level, it was still weaker than ordinary earthly venerable cultivation techniques. However, combat skills were actually spiritual martial arts. As long as I can master this God-level combat skill, I'll truly have the ability to contend with heavenly gods and mortal gods. I won't just rely on the power of the undying sword soul. After all, no matter how strong the undying sword soul was, it could only be used once. On the other hand, God-level combat skills could be used countless times as long as one had enough mind power. After completely comprehending the Celestial Star Palm, Yi Fei's expression was full of excitement. After transmitting to Gongzhu that he was going to cultivate in seclusion, Yi Fei threw all matters of the Roland's Golden Palace to the back of his mind. He was only in the spiritual space, repeatedly deducing the new God-level combat skill, striving to master it as soon as possible. He had mastered it. Xiao Chao and Ling Siki were speechless when they saw that they had to go into seclusion again after coming out of seclusion in the ancestral God Palace. Little Guogua is too boring. Xiao Chao, Why don't you take Long Gui with you and follow me? Don't worry, I'll take good care of you in Long Gui. Ling Siki was young, but mischievous. She began to try her best to poach Yi Fei again. This little girl really liked the dragon turtle and Xiao Qiao. This was also the reason why she kept clinging on to Yi Fei. The little girl had already made up her mind to take Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle away. If she really couldn't take them away, then there was nothing she could do. Then she had no choice but to suffer a little and work hard to marry Yi Fei. Home. Of course, if Yi Fei knew that Ling Siki had such thoughts, he would definitely reject her. Xiao Qiao looked at Ling Siki strangely. He also firmly rejected Ling Siki's unreasonable request. On the other hand, Long Gui was busy eating. He was so busy that he didn't even have time to make a sound. However, as he ate, Long Gui suddenly felt that something was wrong. Boom! A pitch-black hole suddenly appeared in the dome of the Roland's palace. The hole rapidly expanded and a mysterious void appeared. At the end of the void, purple lightning was rolling like lava. It rumbled and surged out from the end of the void. Its target was Long Gui, who was still eating magic crystals. Heavenly tribulation. Long Gui seems to be breaking through to Martial Emperor. Ling Siki and Xiao Qiao looked at Long Gui in surprise. They didn't expect Long Gui to attract a Martial Emperor, Heavenly Tribulation, just by eating magic crystals. Of course, strictly speaking, Long Gui didn't attract a martial path, Heavenly Tribulation, but a demon path, Heavenly Tribulation. After all, Long Gui walked the demon path. Although the demon path was similar to the battle shaman path and would eventually lead to the martial path, there were still differences in the demon path. For example, when Long Gui was in the martial royal realm, he was equivalent to a little monster king. However, when he reached the martial emperor realm, Long Gui would become a great monster saint. Currently, Long Gui was going through the monster saint tribulation. Roar! Heavenly tribulation? Never in its wildest dreams would the dragon turtle have imagined that it would trigger a heavenly tribulation just by eating Dharma crystals. The dragon turtle was so frightened that its black mouth turned white at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before the heavenly tribulation descended, the dragon turtle rushed to Ling Siki's side with a whoosh. Then, a terrifying purple-black lightning formed a huge light pillar. At the same time, it enveloped Ling Siki, Long Gui, and Xiao Qiao. Long Gui was charred on the spot. Long Gui opened his black mouth, and black smoke came out of it. Xiao Qiao's face darkened. Black smoke also came out of Ling Siki's head. Then, the two girls flew into a rage out of humiliation. They kicked Long Gui like a ball and threw it to Yi Fei. Boom! At the same time, Long Gui's second monster, Saint Tribulation, landed. Since Long Gui had already flown to Yi Fei's side, the Heavenly Tribulation also targeted Yi Fei. A purple-black lightning bolt that was 10 times bigger than Long Gui's black jar landed on top of Yi Fei and Long Gui's heads. Yi Fei suddenly had the urge to kick Long Gui away. Of all times, Long Gui had to face the Heavenly Tribulation now. Fortunately, they were in the Roland's Golden Palace. Chun Liang had set up various powerful magus restrictions. If Long Gui had accidentally attracted the Heavenly Tribulation outside, his identity would have been exposed. At the same time, Yi Fei was at the most critical moment in comprehending the celestial palm. Seeing Long Gui attract the Heavenly Tribulation, Yi Fei was annoyed. However, at the same time, he had an idea. Why don't I use Long Gui's Heavenly Tribulation to test the power of this divine battle technique? He acted as soon as he thought of it. When the purple-black lightning bolt landed, Yi Fei subconsciously performed the celestial palm that he had just comprehended. Yi Fei's majestic spiritual power formed a huge star palm. It grabbed the heavens and the earth and blasted toward the lightning bolt. Two great venerables. Chun Liang's Golden Palace is in front of us. Inside Roland's Golden Palace, Yi Fei was busy helping Long Gui to face the Heavenly Tribulation. Outside Roland's Golden Palace, two large groups of people had arrived. One of the groups was holding a golden wolf head war flag. They were surrounded by wolf-like golden sorcerers. They were the wolf cavalry of the Tianfeng tribe and the direct descendants of Jin Shi. Horses. The members of the other team were all wearing flaming battle robes. The person in the lead had hair that was burning fiercely like flames. If Yi Fei were here, he would recognize him at a glance. He was Grand Monarch Li Hua, who had clashed with him in the Dark Mystic Palace. Grand Venerable Li Hua was also Jin Shi's father-in-law. However, because Jin Shi had just broken through to the Supreme Magus realm, he despised Grand Venerable Li Hua for being old and weak and wanted to abandon his daughter. This made Grand Venerable Li Hua furious, and he wanted to fight Jin Shi on the battlefield. Chapter 1897. How many years has it been? Master Shangjiu, I can finally eliminate your influence on me and the Heavenly Wind Tribe. Qinliang, if you dare to stop me, I'll destroy your Roland's palace today. Boom! Jin Shi roared like a wolf, forming a terrifying spiritual pressure that instantly shrouded the entire Roland's palace. Grand Venerable Li Hua looked at all this indifferently and had no intention of interfering. However, the arrival of the two sorcerer gods at the same time immediately caused a commotion in the entire Roland's palace. In the distant void, many golden sorcerers and even sorcerer gods appeared. They had all heard the news and rushed over from other Roland's palace. After all, in the sorcerer tribe, battles between sorcerer gods were rare. It was even rarer for two sorcerer gods to join forces and attack another sorcerer god's palace. Qinliang, old man, I'll give you 15 minutes to hand over the bastard who killed my son. Otherwise, I, Jin Shi, will destroy your Roland's palace today and turn the sorcerer tribe's 13 supreme masters back to 12. Jin Shi was high-spirited. In order to repair the relationship with Grand Venerable Li Hua, he had paid a great price. He had paid a great price for it. But as long as he thought that he could eradicate the last trace of Shangjiu today, Jin Shi felt the blood in his body burn with excitement. Seeing that no one in the Roland's palace answered, Jin Shi threw out a void handprint on the spot and slapped toward the huge Roland's palace. In the Roland's palace, this also made the faces of Gong Zhu and the others, who were still comforting the golden sorcerers, change dramatically. What should we do? Jin Shi has joined forces with Grand Venerable Li Hua. With the current strength of our Roland's palace and Grand Venerable Shangjiu, I'm afraid we can't stop them. These golden sorcerers have been forced to surrender to Yi Fei. At this time, seeing that Yi Fei might be attacked by two sorcerer gods, they all changed their minds and naturally became disloyal. At this time, the importance of Yi Fei making these people swear allegiance to him finally showed. If he hadn't forced these gold-ranked great magi to swear the ancestral Magus oath and pledge their loyalty, these great magi of Chen Liang's Roland's palace would have crumbled on the spot after learning of Chen Liang's death and facing the attack of the two great magi with an army. They would have fled or even joined the enemy. There was a high possibility that they would have exposed Yi Fei's identity. On the contrary, Gong Zhu, who was the first to join them, was rather calm at this time. He shouted in a deep voice, "What the hell are you doing? They're just two sorcerer gods. We have the protection of the Golden Palace, and the 9th Venerable Shang is the strongest battle sorcerer. Even if two more sorcerer gods came, the 9th Venerable Shang wouldn't care. Activate the restrictions and protect the Roland's Golden Palace." I'll go invite the great senior over right now. After refining the Empyrean source and also obtaining the Golden Divine Trove, even if Gong Zhu was a bootlicker, he still felt gratitude towards Yi Fei from the bottom of his heart. As he spoke, Gong Zhu ran as fast as he could to the core palace of the Roland's Golden Palace. He was prepared to inform Yi Fei of this matter. Gong Zhu's calmness quickly calmed the other gold sorcerers down. Gong Zhu is right. Since we have sworn the ancestral sorcerer oath, we can't betray the 9th Venerable Shang. Now that things have come to this, we can only fight to the end. That's right. So what if there are two sorcerer gods? The Roland's Golden Palace is not easy to bully. Activate the restrictions and prepare to fight. Every Roland's Golden Palace was a terrifying battle fortress, equivalent to the human deity temple and the divine deity temple. When these gold sorcerers joined forces to activate the restrictions of the Roland's Golden Palace, a layer of terrifying spiritual light shrouded the entire Roland's Golden Palace. Jin Shi and Grand Venerable Li Hua's eyes became extremely gloomy. Damn Chun Liang. What benefits did that bastard give him? How could he not hesitate to trigger a bloody battle between us sorcerer gods for that bastard? We can't care so much. This matter has already alarmed the other Roland's Golden Palaces. Since Chun Liang is seeking his own death, we'll fulfill his wish. Pass on my order. Kill. Grand Venerable Li Hua roared. He suddenly raised a flaming flag in his hand and waved it forward. Boom! The hundreds of gold sorcerers behind Grand Venerable Li Hua roared. Some of them turned into flame giants. Some released countless fire crows. Some rode on fire horses, and some summoned endless flames, turning the entire void into a terrifying world of flames. Amidst the flames, the howls of golden wolves could be heard. It was the wolf cavalry that Jin Shi had trained. They were charging forward. These wolf cavalry were made up of the most elite gold-ranked sorcerers of the Heavenly Wind tribe. The golden wolves that they were riding on were a type of ferocious beast from the sorcerer tribe. They were born with great strength and could move as fast as the wind. When dozens of gold wolves, under the control of the wolf cavalry, spat out endless storms that swept across the void, the endless flames that existed in the void became even fiercer. Looking from the Roland's Golden Palace, the sky outside seemed to have turned into a fiercely burning cloud of fire, and in the depths of the cloud of fire were the wolf cavalry with a murderous look. This scene immediately made many gold sorcerers of the Roland's Golden Palace panic again. After all, the number of gold sorcerers in the Roland's Golden Palace was small. There were only 50 of them, and the strongest ones were killed by Yi Fei and Gong Zhu respectively. With only the remaining gold sorcerers, they could not even hold on until Yi Fei came out of seclusion, let alone resist the attack of the wolf cavalry and the army of the Fire's Golden Palace. When they gave the order to charge, they still saw no sign of Chun Liang coming out to stop them, which made many sorcerers who were secretly watching the battle somewhat confused. What's going on? With the number of gold sorcerers in the Roland's Golden Palace, they can't stop the joint attack of Jin Shi and the Fire's Golden Palace. Chun Liang still hasn't shown up. Is he going to abandon his Roland's Golden Palace? That's possible. Chun Liang has always been ruthless. As long as the sorcerers don't die, even if the Roland's Golden Palace is destroyed, it can be rebuilt. On the other hand, if that Shang Jiao can break through to become a sorcerer god in this period of time, sorcerer god, how is that possible? There has never been a battle sorcerer who could break through to become a sorcerer god in history. Even if that kid has a gold god treasure, he can forget about breaking through without a few hundred years. If that's the case, it's highly possible that Chun Liang brought Shang Jiao and escaped alone. He is going to endure for a few hundred years and be a coward. These sorcerers are discussing fervently. Many of them had an idea and suddenly appeared, extending an olive branch to the resisting sorcerers in the Roland's Golden Palace. The sorcerers inside. Listen up. Chun Liang still hasn't shown up. There's an 80% chance that he has abandoned all of you and brought Shang Jiao along to be a coward. Why do you have to do this for Chun Liang? Die for Chun Liang. Any sorcerers who are not loyal to him can surrender now and join the other Roland's Golden Palace. Chapter 1898. What? Kill him. Supreme Venerable Chun Liang has abandoned us. Jin Shi's words undoubtedly made the hearts of the people in the Roland's palace waver even more. Apart from the 9 gold wizards who had been forced to swear allegiance to him, the other wizards who didn't know what had happened and hadn't taken the ancestral wizard oaths subconsciously believed the judgment of the other wizard gods when they saw that Chun Liang still hadn't shown up in such a dangerous situation. That was, Supreme Venerable Chun Liang might really abandon them, and escape with Yi Fei alone. Then, screams rang out in the Roland's palace. Damn it, that damn Shang Jiao, he borrowed more than 500 magic crystals from me and still hasn't returned it. Now, he's being protected by Supreme Venerable Chun Liang like a coward, and he's leaving us here to die. No, I can't die. Even Supreme Venerable Chun Liang has escaped. Why should we stay here and risk our lives? I surrender, Supreme Venerables, I surrender. Please spare my life. The morale of the army wavered. Before the defenses of the Roland's palace were breached, many gold wizards had already collapsed from the inside. Seeing this, Yi Fei, who had just walked out of the Roland's palace, had a dark look on his face. He suddenly had the urge to slaughter the dragon turtle and stew it. Unable to hold himself back, Yi Fei sent a kick at the dragon tortoise. All you know is to eat, eat, and eat. To think that eating magic crystals could actually trigger heavenly tribulation. Yi Fei felt so frustrated that he did not know what to say. From today onwards, your meals will be halved for a year. Roar. The dragon turtle's face turned ashen when it heard that it had to reduce its meals. As it screamed, it wagged its tail and rubbed against Yi Fei's trousers. In the end, it accidentally rubbed a hole in Yi Fei's other trousers. Yi Fei was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, Yi Fei didn't intend to make a move. Instead, he waited until the gold wizards whose wills had been shaken escaped from the Roland's palace before he suddenly made a move. He used the void technique and crossed layers of void with one step. Suddenly, he rushed out of the Roland's palace from the steps of the palace. Then, a terrifying blood sword shone in all directions and slashed forward furiously. The gold wizards who had escaped from the Roland's palace didn't understand what was going on. Their bodies exploded, and they were all killed by Yi Fei in an instant. This is the fate of those who betray the Roland's palace. Yi Fei's face was grim. He wouldn't show any mercy to traitors. Yi Fei's palace successfully intimidated the golden wizards who were attacking outside. Especially when they felt the terrifying spiritual pressure from Yi Fei's body, they realized that he wasn't a wizard. Instead, a wizard. Supreme Magus. Oh my god, Shang Jiao has broken into Supreme Magus as well. Someone screamed in fear. Don't kill me, Lord Wu Mo. The one who went against you is Jin Shi. It has nothing to do with us. The wolf riders of the Heavenly Wind tribe suddenly collapsed. After all, they were all gold wizards from the Tianfeng tribe. Many of them had participated in the bloody battle against Shang Jiao. That battle gave Shang Jiao the title of wizard. That battle was like a nightmare that was deeply imprinted in the hearts of all the gold wizards of the Tianfeng tribe. Now that they saw the wizard who seemed to be Shang Jiao reappear and had broken through to the wizard god, the murderous wolf cavalry instantly collapsed and fled in all directions. All of them. What? How long has it been? This evil creature has broken through to the wizard god level. Chun Liang, that old fox, actually hit such a trump card. All wizards retreat immediately. Grand Venerable Li Hua's expression changed drastically. He quickly waved the flaming flag in his hand backward. However, Grand Venerable Li Hua's order was still a step too late. While killing those gold wizards who had betrayed the Roland's palace, the blood sword in Yi Fei's hand suddenly changed. The terrifying spiritual power of the wizard god suddenly turned the floating blood sword behind him into a huge blood sword mountain. Then, Yi Fei grabbed the blood sword with both hands and smashed it forward again. Bang! Between heaven and earth, there were signs of mountains collapsing and the earth cracking. In front of this huge blood sword mountain, the rolling flames in the void were suppressed. Then, clusters of blood flowers exploded in the air, constantly blooming under the blood sword. This time, there were more than 100 gold wizards who were ordered by the Li Fire Golden Palace to fight, but less than 50 of them could really escape. Half of them died under Yi Fei's blood sword mountain. This was the horror of a battle wizard. Without becoming a wizard god, no matter how many gold wizards came, they could not be killed by Yi Fei's sword. My subordinates! Shang Jiao, how dare you do this? Grand Venerable Li Hua was mad with anger. Looking at his subordinates who had suffered heavy casualties, his heart was bleeding. However, she was even angrier. The hatred between him and Shang Jio was too deep. As Yi Fei inherited Shang Jio's golden treasure, this hatred was naturally transferred to Yi Fei. Not to mention, Yi Fei had killed his only son and only used half a year to break through to the wizard god realm. While she was furious, his eyes suddenly flashed with intense madness and jealousy. He grabbed Yi Fei's blood sword with his mountain-like hand and blocked Yi Fei's blood sword with his bare hands. Damn bastard, you're just a substitute for Shang Jio. You came out at the right time. I'll take your head as a sacrifice to my son's soul in heaven. Shut your stinky mouth. Shang Jio is your brother. If you treat your brother as a bastard, then what are you? You're worse than a bastard. Get out. Yi Fei also roared. The moment he saw Shang Jio's hatred quickly emerged, filling Yi Fei's heart with violent anger and madness. Murderous intent. The heavy blood sword became even heavier, tearing the sky and shattering the sky. Affected by Yi Fei's furious murderous intent, the blood sword in his hand also became boiling with murderous intent. It turned into a sword that looked like it was made of blood and slashed towards Shi forcefully. Shi's cold and arrogant face suddenly changed. This power. How can a battle wizard have such great power? As he spoke, Shi's hand that was holding the blood sword was torn apart by the sword energy, revealing the white bones. However, before Yi Fei's sword energy could do any more damage, Shi quickly retreated and transformed into a terrifying stone wizard god. His huge stone palm suddenly opened up, forming a terrifying black hole in the void, and viciously slapped towards Yi Fei's blood sword. Damn bastard, I don't care if you're Shang Jio or not. Shi will kill you. I swear that I will make your skull into the most exquisite wine cup. And Shang Jio, even though you've broken through to the wizard god level, you've offended the two of us. Today you'll die for sure. Grand Monarch Li Hua shouted angrily. Seeing that Yi Fei, who had just broken through to the wizard god level, had such terrifying battle strength, he was shocked, and at the same time, a shocking murderous intent burst out his eyes. Chapter 1899. Grand Monarch Li Hua was a tool sorcerer, which focused on refining heaven and earth. For example, at this moment, Grand Monarch Li Hua had refined a lava volcano with overwhelming spiritual qi into a powerful tool that he could wield easily. Then, he tilted the volcano in his hand. The surging lava instantly burned the entire sky red. The surroundings became incomparably hot. At this moment, the ground actually began to melt. The dome of the Roland's Golden Palace was completely ignited under the high temperature. Boiling gold flowed out with sizzling sounds. Howl! Shi let out a wolf howl. His injured palm had completely recovered. At this moment, he cooperated with Grand Monarch Li Hua's attack and condensed a spirit wolf. The spirit wolf opened its mouth wide, and inside it was an incomparably deep black hole. With an amazing gravitational force and a vortex of devouring, it gradually swallowed Yi Fei. Sorcery. Golden Wolf's killing blow. Shi roared ferociously, like a ferocious king of wolves. Rumble. With his furious roar and the collision between the Golden Wolf and the lava, Yi Fei immediately felt a tremendous pressure, which shattered his blood sword with a bang. After all, his blood sword was not as strong as his fleshly body. At this moment, facing the divine-level sorcery of the two sorcerer gods, it was finally shattered. However, Yi Fei was not discouraged. The blood sword was not his real trump card. The blazing lava rushed over and instantly submerged half of his body. The huge wolf's mouth swooped down like lightning, devouring the sky and Yi Fei's upper body. It seemed that Yi Fei was about to be torn in half by the sorcery of the two sorcerer gods. Kill! Yi Fei suddenly let out a roar that sounded like that of a wild beast. At this moment, Yi Fei activated his battle sorcerer body to the limit, causing Yi Fei's fleshly body to emit the unique divine light of a pseudo-venerable level weapon. The resplendent spiritual power formed rays of light that were even more dazzling than the stars, and suddenly filled the sky. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't a real star, but a gigantic palm formed by countless stars. It was like a dazzling river of stars as Yi Fei slammed it into the mouth of the descending god wolf. The divine wolf let out an earth-shattering explosion. Half of the golden divine wolf's body had already been shattered by Yi Fei's palm. It turned back into scattered spiritual light and dissipated between heaven and earth. However, Yi Fei's palm didn't stop there. While breaking Jin Shi's magic, Yi Fei launched another heavenly star's palm. This time, Yi Fei's target was the volcano in Grand Monarch Li Hua's hand. Grand Monarch Li Hua flew into a rage. Evil creature, you're courting death. No matter how powerful you are, do you think you can fight against two supreme magi at the same time? Kneel down and accept your death. Bam! Before he could finish, Grand Monarch Li Hua suddenly felt that the fiery clouds above his head were torn apart. Then, the volcano he had refined was suddenly slapped hard by a palm of stars that covered heaven and earth. The huge volcano exploded on the spot. Grand Monarch, what did you just say? The violent explosion drowned out all sounds in heaven and earth. At this moment, Yi Fei's figure emerged from the lava of the exploding volcano and stepped in front of Grand Monarch Li Hua. Before Grand Monarch Li Hua could roar, another palm of stars that condensed endless starlight suddenly slapped Grand Monarch Li Hua. Grand Monarch Li Hua's huge body, which was burning with flames. Evil creature, I'm going to kill you. Grand Monarch Li Hua retreated rapidly, his terrifying psychic power spinning madly like a spinning top. At the same time, rings of golden halos emerged from his body. Mega's spell, 1,000 golden divine rings around Royal City. These divine rings were all condensed from the earth vein divine flame that Grand Monarch Li Hua had refined. Countless divine metals had been added to them, and they had been tempered thousands of times. Now, they could withstand the attacks of divine-grade Mega's spells. Yi Fei was also taken aback. Then, his face darkened. Since one palm of stars wasn't enough, he immediately launched a second, third, fourth, fifth. In the end, Yi Fei's figure disappeared completely. Only endless starlight protected him and Grand Monarch Li Hua. The 1,000-layer golden halos around him were completely submerged. For the first time, a look of intense fear appeared on Grand Monarch Li Hua's face. A divine-grade battle skill is so powerful that it's not inferior to an earthly venerable's martial art. Oh no, Jin Shi helped. Mega spell, Void Fission. While Yi Fei and Grand Monarch Li Hua were fighting, Jin Shi didn't make a move. Instead, he looked indifferent. It wasn't until Yi Fei released a large amount of psychic power that a sinister smile appeared on his face. He said in a deep voice, I didn't expect that a bastard left behind by Shang Jio would become so terrifying after breaking through to the Magus Divinity realm. Unfortunately, you're facing two Magus Divinities. Now that you've consumed a large amount of psychic power, I'd like to see how a bastard like you can withstand the attacks of two Magus Divinities. Die, you bastard! Grand Monarch Li Hua seized this opportunity to advance instead of retreating. With the last of his strength, he suddenly brandished a pitch-black divine spear and madly stabbed it towards Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei stood as still as a mountain. However, under Grand Monarch Li Hua's puzzled and shocked gaze, he suddenly turned around and completely ignored the divine spear that he brandished towards him. Yi Fei's body of battle shaman emitted a dazzling golden light, making him look like a golden fiend god. The powerful body of a pseudo-venerable tool allowed Yi Fei to withstand Grand Monarch Li Hua's divine spear attack unscathed. At the same time, Yi Fei suddenly formed a sword with his fingers. Without looking back, he just flung it backwards. A terrifying, destructive sword light. Grand Monarch Li Hua's body suddenly exploded in the air. under the destructive sword light that was comparable to an attack of an earthly venerable. His golden divine treasure was completely shattered. Jin Shi, didn't you want to consume my psychic power and take advantage of me? I'll do as you wish. This palm strike is on behalf of Shangjiao. Boom. Yi Fei didn't look back at Grand Monarch Li Hua's body that had exploded. He just opened the spring of his psychic power and formed a second golden divine treasure. Then, he fiercely attacked Jin Shi with the heavenly star's palm again. Great fear suddenly appeared on Jin Shi's face. How can you be so strong? After killing a sorcerer god in an instant, your golden divine treasure should have been completely exhausted. How can you still have such powerful psychic power? Oh no, body of nothingness. Grand Monarch Li Hua's sudden death in battle threw Jin Shi's mind into chaos. In a hurry, he immediately used his strongest defensive sorcery to merge his body into the void. His flesh and bones became transparent at this time, trying to block Yi Fei's terrifying combat skill. Yi Fei didn't care about Jin Shi's futile struggle. He just exerted the power of a battle shaman to the limit. The second palm strike is on behalf of little Yu who was humiliated to death by you. Kill. Another palm of heavenly stars crashed down on Jin Shi's transparent body of nothingness. After being attacked by two god-level combat skills in a row, no matter how exquisite the body of nothingness was, Jin Shi spat out blood crazily and was knocked out of the void again. However, before Jin Shi could continue to retreat, Yi Fei suddenly roared like a fiend god. Jin Shi, the third palm strike will send you to the afterlife. Boom! The surroundings shook, the void collapsed, and the earth sank. Yi Fei suddenly burst out with all his psychic power in one breath. He fiercely formed a sharp knife with his palm and chopped at Jin Shi's neck. Puff! Chapter 1900. The entire void was silent. Even the great sorcerers of the Fire Golden Palace and the wolf cavalrymen of the Tianfeng tribe fell into a dead silence. At the beginning of the battle, no one had expected it to end in such a bloody and unexpected way. Faced with the attacks of two sorcerer gods, Yi Fei not only turned the situation around by himself, but also killed two sorcerer gods in an instant before the other sorcerer gods had time to react. Jin Shi was not so bad. After all, he was just a newly promoted supreme sorcerer with a weak foundation. However, Grand Monarch Li Hua was different. He was a senior supreme sorcerer who had cultivated for more than 100,000 years. He was a supreme expert of the same era as the divine realm and the human realm. Due to his lifespan, Grand Monarch Li Hua could live for a long time. Although Li Hua had a long lifespan and was sealing himself to prolong his life, he was still a powerful supreme expert. Not to mention others, none of the other sorcerer gods present was confident that they could kill Li Hua in such a short time. However, Yi Fei did it. As they thought about this, the sorcerer celestials, who were still in the void, couldn't help but look at Yi Fei with a hint of fear in their eyes. Battle sorcerer. This is a real battle sorcerer. We were all wrong, so wrong. Damn it. Who said that battle sorcerers were the weakest in our sorcerer tribe? The battle sorcerer sect. He's obviously the strongest in our sorcerer tribe. He's an invincible expert comparable to an earthly master of the human tribe. The silence lasted for a full minute before the sorcerer gods in the void cried out in shock and fear one after another. For these sorcerer gods, they were already the most powerful beings in this world. There were very few things that could make them so shocked and lose their composure. However, the combat strength that Yi Fei had displayed, as well as the terrifying might of the combat skills that he had used, had still deeply shocked these sorcerer gods. As for Gong Zhu and the 9 gold sorcerers who were forced to follow Yi Fei's strength gave them a great surprise and a strong encouragement. Great sorcerer, long live the 9th great sorcerer Shang. Some gold sorcerers cheered wildly. This was definitely a glorious victory. Who would have thought that the Battle Wizard sect, which had always been weak, would be able to unleash such terrifying power after breaking through to the level of Wizard God? Who would have thought that Yi Fei would be so powerful? He had killed 2 sorcerer gods in one go. This was definitely a legend. In his excitement, Gong Zhu's heart was moved, and he habitually flattered, "What great sovereign! With big brother strength, how can you be compared to ordinary great sovereigns? I think Big Brother should be called Ninth Sovereign Shang from now on." Supreme Martial Artist? The eyelids of many sorcerer gods twitched violently. Although the sorcerer gods were considered supremes, none of them dared to call themselves supremes. After all, the sorcerer god was the weakest in the sovereign realm. Above the sorcerer god were the earthly venerables of the human race, and above them were the heavenly venerables. In this world, the only person who dared to call himself a sovereign was probably the dark heavenly lord. At this moment, they heard that a mere gold wizard dared to praise Yi Fei as a sovereign, which meant that he was above all the sorcerer gods. On the spot, a sorcerer god flew into a rage. He glared at Gong Zhu coldly and shouted, "How dare you? We great sovereigns haven't spoken yet. Who allowed you, a mere great sorcerer, to speak so carelessly? Kneel on the ground immediately and slap yourself 100 times." Gong Zhu's face turned pale with fright. Only then did he realize that he had been so complacent that he seemed to have accidentally offended all the sorcerer gods present. "I think Gong Zhu's suggestion is good. I'm not interested in being a great sovereign. The title of sovereign suits me better. How about this? My real surname is Yi, not Shangjiao. From today on, I'll be known as sovereign. Seniors, what do you think?" Yi Fei suddenly stood in front of Gong Zhu, attracting the attention of the sorcerer god. Immediately, a sorcerer god who wanted to make friends with Yi Fei helped to introduce him. "This is Yao Gui. Like Grand Sovereign Li Hua, he's one of the few seniors among the sorcerer gods. I'm Huang Qiu, and this is Fu Riluo, Marquis Shibai." Grand Sovereign Huang Qiu was the only female sorcerer god among the sorcerer gods. Due to her high status, she had never taken men seriously. However, when she saw Yi Fei, there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Her expression was also quite provocative. Yi Fei was speechless. He quickly coughed dryly, as if he didn't see the strong, flirtatious look in Huang Qiu's eyes. He just stared coldly at Yao Gui and said, "So, it's Yao Gui? What's wrong? Are you dissatisfied with me using the title of sovereign?" Yi Fei narrowed his eyes as if he was discussing something. After seeing Yi Fei's terrifying strength in killing Li Hua and Jin Shi, the sorcerer gods present, including Huang Qiu, all showed a strong sense of fear toward Yi Fei. Yao Gui, who was questioned by Yi Fei, turned as black as charcoal on the spot. He was angry and sullen at the same time. However, the combat strength displayed by the battle sorcerer was too shocking. His terrifying combat strength was not inferior to that of the human tribe's earthly venerables. Although the sorcerer gods present were dissatisfied with Yi Fei's title of sovereign and his superiority over them, the sorcerer tribe, like the human tribe, respected the strong. Cool. If Yi Fei had called himself sovereign just because he was as strong as them, the sorcerer gods would have immediately jumped out to mock and ridicule him. However, when they realized that the combat strength of the battle sorcerer after breaking through to the martial god realm was comparable to that of a human venerable or an earthly venerable, and that 2 sorcerer gods couldn't defeat him even if they joined forces, none of the sorcerer gods dared to object, despite their strong dissatisfaction. They looked at Huang Qiu once again. Huang Qiu was very embarrassed. However, in the face of Yi Fei's unyielding strength, she no longer looked at him. Instead, she became cautious and asked tentatively, "What are your plans, Sovereign Yi? And why hasn't Chun Liang shown up yet?" Chun Liang tried to harm me and steal my battle sorcerer's body. I killed him when I broke through to the sorcerer god realm." Yi Fei no longer hid the truth. He was also testing the waters. After all, sorcerer arts were strange, and there were sorcerer arts that specialized in finding people. Instead of hiding it and being discovered by the sorcerer gods, he might as well admit it openly. Moreover, with Yi Fei's current combat strength, He didn't need to be afraid of the sorcerer gods at all. What? Chun Liang is dead. Huang Qiu's tone was filled with shock, but her expression was calm. Most of the other sorcerer gods were the same. After all, those who could become sorcerer gods were the top talents in the sorcerer tribe. Many of them had long realized that something must have happened to Chun Liang since he hadn't shown up for a long time. However, they didn't expect that Chun Liang would be killed by Yi Fei. In this way, there were already 3 sorcerer gods who had died at Yi Fei's hands. This made the sorcerer gods gasp once again. This guy with the surname, Yi, is indeed worthy of the title of Witch Demon. Going against him is a dead end. It's best to befriend him and avoid conflict with him. Chapter 1901. After acknowledging Yi Fei's title as sovereign, the sorcerer god immediately changed his tone and asked the question he was most concerned about. May I ask, Sovereign Yi, now that you've killed 3 sorcerer gods, what do you plan to do next? The other sorcerer gods pricked up their ears nervously. After all, the combat technique sect had displayed great combat power and was comparable to the human earthly venerables. With Yi Fei's rise, the power of the sorcerer tribe was about to be reshuffled. At this critical moment, no sorcerer god was willing to compromise their own interests. Yi Fei was also a smart person. Of course, he understood the meaning behind the sorcerer god's words. Obviously, it was easy for the sorcerer gods to acknowledge his title as Sovereign Yi, but it was extremely difficult for them to give up their own interests. Fortunately, I don't belong to the sorcerer tribe and have no interest in fighting for power with these sorcerer gods. Rather than offending them, it's better to quit while I'm ahead and take an appropriate step back. Although the combat power of the sorcerer god and the weapon sorcerer was not comparable to that of the human earthly venerables, if the 11 sorcerer gods worked together, Yi Fei would not be able to defeat them. Even if a man god or a heavenly god came, they would have to turn and run. At this moment, Yi Fei was not foolish enough to offend all the sorcerer gods at once. Instead, he expressed his attitude in a low voice. Seniors, please don't worry. I killed Chun Liang because Chun Liang wanted to harm me first. I killed Jin Shi because of the enmity between Jin Shi and Li Hua. I had to kill him. There's an old saying in the human race. If others don't offend me, I won't offend them. I won't touch your interests, but I hope you won't touch my interests either. Hearing Yi Fei's guarantee, the sorcerer gods present heaved a sigh of relief. At least, although Yi Fei was strong, he was not overbearing and could be negotiated. Then may I ask, Sovereign Yi, if you won't touch our interests, where do you plan to protect the dignity of your Roland's palace? The one who asked the question was Marquis Shibai. He wore a black robe and had made things difficult for Yi Fei many times because Yi Fei had killed his disciple. At this time, he was afraid that Yi Fei would take revenge on him and was very nervous. Yi Fei smiled faintly and patted Marquis Shibai's shoulder in an open-minded manner. Let's forget about our past grudges. Great sage, let's not talk about our past grudges. My goal is very simple. I will not develop my power in the shaman tribe. I will go to the human tribe soon. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Fei's words made Marquis Shibai overjoyed. Then, another supremacy named Ming Lian came to his senses and said in pleasant surprise, Supreme Supremacy Yi, how could I forget? You are going to represent the sorcerer race and marry the sky deity. When you marry the sky deity's daughter, you will naturally be able to stay in the human race. What? Stay in the human race? Why didn't we think of that? The other sorcerer gods' eyes lit up. Only then did they realize Yi Fei's other identity, which was that he was the future son-in-law of the sky deity. With this identity, Yi Fei could develop his power in the human race. At the same time, he could also monitor the human race's every move on behalf of the sorcerer race. As long as Yi Fei was determined to stay in the human race, he would not affect the interests of the other sorcerer gods. This was a situation where everyone was happy. The last trace of vigilance the sorcerer gods had towards Yi Fei disappeared. They all promised, Supreme Supremacy Yi, if you can really develop in the human race, We will definitely support you with all our might. Of course, supreme supremacy Yi, with your status. How can a woman from the human race be worthy of you? I think that you should marry a woman of the same status as you in the sorcerer race. Supreme supremacy Huang Qiu's eyes were bright, showing the charming demeanor of a female supremacy. Yi Fei was very embarrassed. He hurriedly used the excuse that he had to deal with the affairs of the Heavenly Wind Tribe and the mythical Fire Golden Palace, and quickly left this passionate and unrestrained female supremacy. That was so close. If I didn't leave, she would have recommended herself on the spot. Gongzhu, what are you laughing at? Did any of the wolf cavalrymen of the Heavenly Wind Tribe and the great sorcerers of the mythical Fire Golden Palace secretly escape? Yi Fei walked over and raised his foot to kick Gongzhu, who was secretly laughing. Gongzhu didn't get angry. Instead, he showed an expression of enjoyment. Yi Fei felt a chill run down his spine when he saw this. He then said, "Big brother, don't worry. We've already counted them. After Jin Shi and Grand Venerable Li Hua died in battle, there were a total of 25 golden great magi on the other side who took the opportunity to escape." Yi Fei nodded with a cold face. He knew that those who escaped must be the absolute confidants of Jin Shi and Grand Venerable Li Hua. They might even be relatives. That was why they chose to escape. Although Yi Fei could not bear to see these people die, as a superior, especially when he shouldered the heavy responsibility of the human emperor, he forced himself to be fierce. Kill all those who escaped. Gongzhu, you take your men to deal with this matter. Don't worry, Supreme Master. I promise that I will eradicate all the remnants of the Heavenly Wind Tribe and Grand Venerable Li Hua. By the way, we can try to recruit these surrendered golden sorcerers to continue working for the mythical Fire Golden Palace. Gongzhu suggested to Yi Fei. When Yi Fei killed Jin Shi and Grand Venerable Li Hua, most of the sorcerers of the Heavenly Wind Tribe and the mythical Fire Golden Palace surrendered immediately. After all, golden sorcerers could not resist the sorcerer god at all. Instead of escaping and being caught and killed in the future, it was better to surrender. Yi Fei also pondered seriously for a while. Then, he nodded and said in a deep voice, "They can join, but they must swear an ancestral sorcerer oath that they will never betray us. Of course, I will not treat them unfairly. Any sorcerer, as long as they swear allegiance to us, can learn the god-level sorcery spells of the mythical Fire Golden Palace. Yes, I will also consider teaching those who are suitable for the battle sorcerer sect." What? God-level sorcery spells? Combat skills. There was a commotion among the surrendered golden sorcerers. Yi Fei's original intention was to bribe them with some benefits. However, he did not know that in the sorcerer tribe, any god-level sorcery spell was a secret of the sorcerer god. Even his close relatives and disciples would not be able to learn it. Yi Fei's unintentional action had set a precedent. This precedent also made those gold wizards who had surrendered immediately turn from apprehension and fear to excitement. Immediately, a bold golden sorcerer knelt down in front of Yi Fei excitedly and said, "Supreme Master Yi, is what you said true? As long as we swear allegiance to you, we can learn god-level sorcery spells? What's so strange about that? Look, I followed the Supreme Master, and the Supreme Master immediately bestowed me with the golden divine treasure. If the Supreme Master can even bestow me with the golden divine treasure, would he care about a few god-level sorcery spells?" Yi Fei did not say anything, but Gongzhu could not wait to help him boast. He even showed off his golden divine treasure. After all, it was always lonely and awkward to be a sorcerer trader alone. Therefore, Gongzhu naturally hoped that there would be more sorcerer traders among the golden sorcerers. When Gongzhu showed off his golden divine treasure, not only were the surrendered golden sorcerers shocked, even some of the free golden sorcerers who were watching from afar could not help but shout excitedly. "Oh my God, it's really the golden divine treasure. Supreme Master Yi, we don't ask for the golden divine treasure. We only ask that you allow us to learn the god-level sorcery spells of the mythical Fire Golden Palace." We are willing to swear allegiance to you. Master, please accept a bow from your disciple. Your disciple is born to be a battle sorcerer. Scram, you're already a golden sorcerer, and your divine treasure is fixed. How can you still cultivate combat skills? Supreme Master, I beg you, I'm quite beautiful. I'm willing to serve you tea, wash your clothes, and fold your bed. Yi Fei and Gong Zhu were extremely shocked as they looked at the golden sorcerers who were swarming towards them. After that, Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Sooner or later, he would have to fight against the deities and deities. Chapter 1902. The impact of Yi Fei releasing the god-level sorcery in Roland's Golden Palace was greater than he had expected. After all, those who could become golden sorcerers did not have many relatives or friends other than a small number of lone wolves. Therefore, these golden sorcerers who had sworn allegiance to Yi Fei would inevitably tell their relatives or friends about this news. 1 spread to 10, and 10 spread to 100. As a result, less than 10 days after Yi Fei returned to Roland's Golden Palace, more than 400 to 500 golden sorcerers had gathered outside Roland's Golden Palace. They strongly requested to swear allegiance to Sovereign Yi and join Roland's Golden Palace. At first, Yi Fei thought that this was a test by the other sorcerer gods, so he rejected them. But soon, his rejection caused public anger. Sovereign Yi, you're too much. Why can those surrendered soldiers join your Roland's Golden Palace? But we can't. It's our duty to be loyal to Sovereign Yi. Yes, this is unfair. We strongly request Sovereign Yi to accept us. Sovereign Yi, if you don't accept our allegiance today, we'll kneel outside and not get up. These golden sorcerers were true to their words. Many of them really knelt outside and did not get up, expressing their strong determination to join Roland's Golden Palace and swear allegiance to Yi Fei. Of course, their allegiance was secondary. The main reason why these golden sorcerers could not wait to swear allegiance to Yi Fei was to learn the god-level sorcery of Roland's Golden Palace. Sorcerers were different from warriors. Every step a warrior took was extremely difficult. They had to go through the test of the heavenly tribulation. Sorcerers did not have the heavenly tribulation, so breaking through to Sorcerer God was not as difficult as breaking through to earthly venerable. In fact, sorcerers and weapon sorcerers only needed to master the 12 gold-level sorcery and integrate with the heavenly venerable origin to cultivate the golden god treasure. It was easy to cultivate the golden god treasure, but the most crucial god-level sorcery was always in the hands of the sorcerer god. Those who became sorcerer gods would keep their god-level sorcery strictly confidential. Unless they had no other choice, the sorcerer gods would not easily impart the sorcery to their loved ones. After all, the sorcerer tribe's interests were only so big. Every time a sorcerer god was born, the interests of the other sorcerer gods would be greatly threatened. Hence, there were only 12 sorcerer gods in the sorcerer tribe. It was not until Yi Fei heard the detailed explanation from Wen Xianzhu that he realized how shocking it was for the Wu tribe to make the god-level Wu spells available to the public. If it were not for his fighting power, the other gods of sorcerers would have come to stop him. However, Yi Fei had no intention of revoking this decision. Firstly, the human god palace and divine god palace had a large number of people. In order to fight against these two divine god palaces, he had to gather enough gold shamans as his subordinates. Secondly, Yi Fei saw another way to resolve the war between humans and magi from the agitation of these gold-ranked magi. That was to disintegrate the power of the magi tribe from within. In this way, he might not have to waste a single soldier. He could make the sorcerer tribe and the human tribe reach a true truce. He would not have to sacrifice the interests of a human tribe to reach a temporary agreement like the gods of heaven. After thinking through this point, Yi Fei walked out of the Roland's Golden Palace again. Facing the hundreds of gold-ranked magi outside the palace, he said in a deep voice, "I can let you join the Roland's Golden Palace and let you learn all the god-level Wu spells in the palace. However, You have to swear that you will be absolutely loyal to me. Also, I agree that the god-level woo spells that you have mastered cannot be spread to outsiders. Even if it is your closest kin, you will not be allowed to do so. Yifei's expression was solemn. At this moment, he had already understood the importance of god-level woo spells. It could be said that only sorcerer gods could master a large number of god-level woo spells. Only then could they build the Roland's Golden Palace and obtain a large number of followers. Therefore, Yifei had to set a certain restriction on the god-level woo spells. He would not allow it. Spread it to outsiders. Otherwise, if the god-level woo spells were to spread, not only would it anger the other sorcerer gods and force them to unite against him, it would also greatly increase the power of the sorcerer tribe. This would be disadvantageous to the human tribe. As the human emperor, Yifei had to consider the interests of the human tribe. Also, your loyalty must be voluntary. I did not force you to be loyal to me. Yifei was an honest person after all. In the end, he still added this sentence with a guilty conscience. Of course, this sentence was pure nonsense in the eyes of the many gold sorcerers. Sovereign, stop talking. We agree to all your requests. There's one more thing. All of you must swear that you will not regret it in the future. Even if you regret it, you must not bear grudges. Yifei still felt uneasy. After all, these gold sorcerers were loyal to him for two reasons. Firstly, it was to learn god-level woo spells. Secondly, it was because of his reputation as the sovereign of the sorcerer tribe. If one day, these gold sorcerers suddenly realized that by being loyal to him, they were betraying the sorcerer tribe. Moreover, they had all mysteriously become sorcerer traitors. Then, these gold sorcerers would secretly curse Yifei to death. At this moment, Yifei naturally had to make statement in advance. Of course, Yifei's statement was once again ignored by the impatient gold sorcerers. Then, groups of gold sorcerers could not wait any longer. They fought to be the first to swear the ancestral sorcerer oath. Some were pious, some were worshipful, some were excited, and some were agitated. Soon, hundreds of gold sorcerers appeared outside the Roland's palace. At the same time, they swore to be loyal to Yifei. Even the entire Tianfeng tribe swore to be loyal to him. They even strongly requested to elect Yifei as the new tribe leader of the Tianfeng tribe. If Yifei had rejected them, they would have been anxious. After all, Shangjiu was originally from the Tianfeng tribe. Since Yifei was the successor of Shangjiu, he naturally had enough prestige to become the new tribe leader of the Tianfeng tribe. One person could not win against an entire tribe. In the end, Yifei could only reluctantly accept the collective loyalty of the entire Tianfeng tribe and succeed the position of tribe leader. Only then did the gold sorcerers of the Tianfeng tribe smile happily. Not long after, close to 100,000 sorcerers of the Tianfeng tribe drove the golden warships and rushed to the lonely mountain ridge. Once again, the strength of Yifei's Roland's palace increased tremendously. Ling Siki, Xiao Chao, and the dragon turtle were also shocked to see that Yifei had recruited 100,000 sorcerers without using a single soldier. He had created the most glorious battle record in the history of the human race. Such a battle record even made the past human emperors feel ashamed. It also made the other 11 sorcerers tremble with fear, as if they were sitting on pins and needles. God-level sorcery is the secret of us sorcerers. It is also the key to controlling the gold sorcerers. Yifei dared to break the rules and allow the god-level sorcery to be spread. We will not allow it. Shibai Corpse Master was the first to speak in anger. The other sorcerers were also distressed. Yifei had publicized the god-level sorcery and received the praise of countless gold sorcerers. However, they kept it to themselves. Even their own Roland's palace was extremely dissatisfied. If this continued, even if Yifei did not touch their interests, their Roland's palace would. Chapter 1903. Everyone, I suggest that we send Yemo, who has broken the rules and is so powerful that we can't afford to offend him, away as soon as possible. I agree. That Yi fellow is making too much of a ruckus. Doesn't he know that every additional sorcerer god will harm our interests and arouse heavenly venerate dark's vigilance? In fact, the sorcerer tribe only had 12 sorcerer gods. Apart from the selfishness of these sorcerer gods, heavenly venerate dark had deliberately limited the number of sorcerer gods. After all, although heavenly venerates were powerful, if there were dozens or even hundreds of sorcerer gods, they would pose a huge threat to heavenly venerate dark. Therefore, every time heavenly venerate dark woke up, he would ask for large amounts of heavenly venerate sources and monitor these sorcerer gods. Anyone who had talent and had the slightest chance of breaking through to become a heavenly venerate would die mysteriously after heavenly venerate dark woke up. This was also the reason why the sorcerer tribe only had 12 sorcerer gods. Now that Yi Fei had publicized a god-level sorcerer technique, more gold-rank sorcerers would have the possibility of breaking through to become sorcerer gods. While these sorcerer gods felt that their interests would be damaged, they also felt an indescribable fear. This fear made them finally make up their minds. Since I can't suppress this devil with the surname Yi, the only way is to send this god of plague away. That's right. Doesn't he want to develop in a human tribe? Then let this demon bring disaster to the human tribe. Let's do that. Now that Yi Mo is in the limelight, we should endure it for the time being. Before long, the day of heavenly venerate dark's awakening will arrive. Given Yi Mo's talent, he will definitely be the first target of the heavenly venerate to eliminate. After a secret discussion, the sorcerer gods quickly came up with the best way to get rid of Yi Fei. They would immediately send people to urge the sky gods to hurry up with the marriage alliance. Several years had passed since Yi Fei had left the human tribe's impregnable pass. A few years was enough for the sky gods and the sky gods to completely destroy the human emperor's palace. At this moment, the human emperor's hall no longer existed in the human stronghold. As the last human emperor, Yi Fei was treated as the greatest traitor to the human race by the celestial gods and the human gods. He was wanted by the entire human race. However, what infuriated the gods and human gods was that they had placed a bounty on Yi Fei for several years already. They had even mobilized the full strength of the Gods' Hall and Human Gods' Hall to capture Yi Fei, but Yi Fei seemed to have suddenly vanished from the world. They couldn't find him no matter what. Not only was Yi Fei nowhere to be found, but the rest of the human sovereign palace, the demon sovereign, the 3 deputy palace masters, the Grand Supreme Dean, and all the martial artists on the Tianling continent seemed to have vanished into thin air. The Heavenly God Hall couldn't find it even after digging 3 feet into the ground. That made the heavenly gods and human gods wonder if Yi Fei and the survivors of the human emperor's palace had already escaped and returned to the martial heaven continent. Subsequently, the heavenly gods and human gods each sent a lower martial god to the martial heaven continent to investigate the situation and see if they could capture Yi Fei's family. However, the heavenly gods and human gods were disappointed when the martial gods they sent out never returned. There was no news from them. Brother Heavenly God, we can't go on like this. You said that as long as we captured Yi Fei, we would be able to force him to hand over the method to go to the heaven realm. That's why I cooperated with you and even sacrificed the demon sovereign. Now, it has been 3 years, and you still haven't found anything. Human God was furious. Even though he and the heavenly gods had joined forces to destroy the human sovereign palace, they had become infamous. After all, every martial artist had to go through countless hardships to be able to enter the human sovereign palace and become an expert. No martial artist would believe that the human sovereign would betray the human sovereign palace. On the contrary, everyone knew that it was just an excuse for the heavenly gods and human gods to destroy the human sovereign palace. At the same time, as the news of the marriage alliance between the heavenly gods and the sorcerer race spread, even within the heavenly god palace, there were many voices of opposition. Led by Long Crane, the geniuses from other races, they were resolutely against sacrificing the human sovereign palace's benefits to reach a humiliating compromise with the sorcerer race. The human god palace also had similar voices. However, these voices were only from a younger generation of the demigods. Very few martial gods expressed their opposition. Most of them remained silent. However, even the heavenly gods and human gods couldn't tell if this silence was agreement or silent opposition. During the 3 years they had spent trying to capture Yi Fei, the heavenly gods and human gods had been under great pressure. This pressure made it impossible for human god to remain calm. That was why he had personally come to the heavenly god palace to talk to the heavenly gods. The heavenly god's expression immediately darkened. He sneered, "Human god, I knew that you would regret it at the crucial moment. However, we've already destroyed the human sovereign palace, and we were the ones who drove Yi Fei out. What's the use of regretting it now? Compared to some infamy, I think it's better to find a way to find a solution. It's more important to head to the heavenly realm." The human god sneered and said disdainfully, "As long as we can't capture Yi Fei, we won't be able to find a way to head to the heavenly realm. We can only die of old age in the earthly venerate realm like the previous human gods and heavenly gods." The heavenly god's expression suddenly became ferocious. "I started practicing martial arts at the age of 10 and broke through to the martial god realm at the age of 20. I reached the honorable realm at the age of 50. With my eternal divine body, if I were in the heavenly realm, I would definitely break through to the heavenly venerate realm within 100 years. However, in the earth realm, you and I are still stuck in the earthly venerate realm. My real body is still in deep sleep. It's been more than 100,000 years. Just the clones of the upper-level martial gods have died of old age." The human god sighed when he heard this. His expression was bleak. "That's right. If I don't become a heavenly venerate, no matter how strong I am, even if I become an unrivaled honorable in this world, in the end, it's all in vain. It's just a dream. I can't accept this. With my violent divine body, if I were in the heavenly realm, I would be able to break through to the heavenly venerate realm. It's easy to break through to the dominator realm. I don't want to die of old age like this." Their eyes met. The human god and the heavenly god could see the ambition and urgency in each other's eyes. They didn't have much time left. They weren't heavenly venerates of darkness who could still be alive and kicking after being seriously injured for more than 100,000 years. For earthly venerates, even if their bodies kept sealing themselves to extend their lifespan, they would soon reach their limit. Once they exceeded this limit, they wouldn't die of old age. They wouldn't have clones anymore, but their earthly venerate bodies. The human god's expression finally turned ferocious. "In order to enter the heavenly realm, I'll do anything. If we can't capture Yi Fei, heavenly god, then we'll do as you say. We'll temporarily sacrifice some of the benefits of the human race battlefield so that we can join forces with the sorcerer gods." The heavenly god's expression was solemn. He was imposing without being angry. "Human god, you should have thought this way long ago. To tell you the truth, 10 days ago, I sent a messenger to contact Supreme Venerate Chun Liang for a marriage alliance. As long as this marriage alliance is successful, I don't believe that 2 earthly venerates and 12 sorcerer gods will join forces. We still can't find a way to enter the heavenly realm." Chapter 1904. Sovereign, we have received news that the envoy sent by the sky god has arrived at Xianming Hall. The other 10 great sovereigns are waiting for you at Xianming Hall. After subduing 100,000 wizards and taking over the mythical fire's golden palace, Yi Fei left everything else to Gongzhou. He hid in Chen Liang's secret golden palace and cultivated diligently. However, Yi Fei did not cultivate sorcery arts anymore. He cultivated martial arts. Although he had become a sovereign in terms of sorcery arts, he was still a demigod in terms of martial arts. Yi Fei's strongest point was not sorcery arts, but martial arts. Therefore, Yi Fei thought of using this rare leisure time to cultivate martial arts and strive to become a martial artist. He could also break through to the martial god realm. However, if he wanted to break through to the martial god realm, he would definitely attract the martial god tribulation. This made Yi Fei feel conflicted. He did not know if he should ignite the divine fire now and try to break through to the martial god realm. However, Yi Fei did not feel conflicted for long. On the other hand, the anxious sky god hurriedly sent another envoy to contact Chunliang when he found out that the sorcerer tribe's envoy had been confirmed. At this moment, the sky god did not know that Chunliang had died long ago. The person who replaced Chunliang was the new emperor Yi Fei, whom the sky god and the sorcerer tribe could not find. Yi Fei was speechless when he heard that the envoy sent by the sky god was martial god Shui Yao. Yi Fei was even more speechless. However, Yi Fei's main purpose in entering the sorcerer tribe was to save Zhao Yu. Since the sky god had sent someone to contact him, Yi Fei set off immediately. He brought Gong Zhu and a dozen golden wizards who had just joined him through the teleportation gate and arrived at Xianming Hall in an instant. Xianming Hall was still the same. It was divided into two halls. The lower hall was the arena where the golden wizards held life and death battles. The upper hall was the meeting hall where the sorcerer gods decided on important matters of the sorcerer tribe. However, it was different from the last time. Last time, Yi Fei had stood in the lower hall's arena and fought to the death. As for the sorcerer god in the upper hall, he could only look up to him. But now, Yi Fei was able to sit on the divine throne in the upper hall. He was on equal footing with the many sorcerers and enjoyed the reverent gazes of countless gold sorcerers. How is it not great, Sovereign Chunliang? Grand Monarch, Li Hua didn't show up either? Blood Demon looked at the newcomer, Yi Fei, curiously. He felt that Yi Fei looked very familiar, but he couldn't put his finger on it. However, there was one thing that the Blood Demon was sure of. Yi Fei was actually sitting on the divine throne that only Supreme Venerate Chunliang could sit on. Originally, only 10 out of the 12 Supreme Venerates of the Sorcerer tribe had appeared. This made the Blood Demon very confused. Blood Demon, you don't have to guess anymore. Chunliang and Li Hua are already dead. This is our Golden Palace's new master, Supreme Yi. From now on, Jizun will represent our Roland's Golden Palace and establish the closest relationship with the God of Heaven. I forgot to tell you, Jizun is the person chosen by our Sorcerer tribe for the peace marriage. He will represent our Sorcerer tribe in marrying the God of Heaven's daughter. On the divine throne, Yi Fei didn't say anything. Gong Zhu, who was familiar with the situation, came forward to explain everything. The other Supreme Venerates didn't refute. Instead, they looked as if they wanted to send Yi Fei away as soon as possible. Blood Demon was dumbfounded. His surname is Yi, and he's a Supreme Venerate? And he looks so familiar? I must be thinking too much. Even if Yimo isn't dead, he's probably hiding like a stray dog being chased by the Sorcerer tribe. Moreover, it's only been a few years. No matter how talented Yimo is, it's impossible for him to become a Supreme Venerate. Blood Demon shook his head vigorously, trying to get rid of the image of Yi Fei's smile that appeared in his mind. Blood Demon's actions angered Gong Zhu. How dare you, Blood Demon? Do you think that Jizun's reputation isn't good enough for the God of Heaven's daughter? How dare you? The other Supreme Venerates were furious. They couldn't wait for Yi Fei to roll up his blanket and leave. If the God of Heaven suddenly changed his mind, Yi Fei wouldn't even need to do anything. These Supreme Venerates would join forces to attack the human tribe's impregnable pass and kill the God of Heaven directly. Blood Demon finally reacted. He had actually acted rudely in front of the powerful Supreme Venerates. Blood Demon was so frightened that his face turned pale. On the other hand, Supreme Venerate Yi Fei, who was sitting on the divine throne, smiled kindly at him. It's all right. After all, the new emperor's surname is Yi, and so is mine. We're still so young. To be honest, sometimes I feel like I'm the new emperor. What? Supreme Venerate Yi Fei. You're the new emperor? Ha ha. Supreme Venerate is too good at joking. All the Supreme Venerates present were amused by Yi Fei's words. Only Gong Zhu didn't laugh. Instead, there was sympathy in his eyes. Once upon a time, he also thought that Yi Fei was joking. It wasn't until later that he realized that this person who was joking in front of him was really the new emperor. At this time, the supreme venerates were the same as Gongzhu. They all thought that Yi Fei was just joking to help Blood Demon out of his predicament. Blood Demon also laughed awkwardly. He cupped his hands towards Yi Fei and said, "Supreme Venerate, Yi Fei must be joking. In our human tribe, the new emperor is just a clown. He's not even fit to carry your shoes." If the god of heaven knew that he could have a supreme venerate as his son-in-law, I think he would laugh even in his dreams. "Wake up." Yi Fei's face darkened. He said coldly, "I don't care about the god of heaven, but I'm very interested in the new emperor." "That's right. I heard that the god of heaven is also trying to capture the new emperor. Has he caught him? Also, has the human sovereign palace in the impregnable pass been eradicated?" "Yes, we don't care about the others. But as long as it's the human sovereign, he must die." The other supreme venerates were furious. There was nothing they could do. Wang Bai had tarnished the reputation of the human sovereign too much. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, the supreme venerates were still filled with malice towards the past human sovereigns. This made Blood Demon's face turn even paler. He was afraid that the fact that he had surrendered to the human sovereign palace as a traitor would be exposed. When he saw that Yi Fei looked the kindest and most approachable among the supreme venerates, Blood Demon immediately bowed his head and tried his best to flatter him. "Supreme Venerate, don't worry. We have completely eradicated the human sovereign palace. We have killed all the remaining members of the human sovereign palace. As for that new emperor, Yi Fei, he has long been hunted down by the god of heaven and god of heaven. He has been reduced to a stray dog, fleeing everywhere. To tell you the truth, Supreme Venerate, the new emperor of this generation isn't very good-looking. He's as ugly as he can be. He can't even compare to a 10,000th of Supreme Venerate's temperament. Yet, this person is despicable and shameless. He specializes in thievery and is a disgrace to the human sovereign. He's an evil scum. His strength isn't even a 10,000th of Supreme Venerates. It's also fortunate that this person didn't encounter me, Blood Demon. Otherwise, I would be able to make that new emperor kneel on the ground and beg for my forgiveness with just a finger. Of course, if Supreme Venerate were to personally take action, a casual breath from you would be able to scare that new emperor to death." Blood Demon was indeed an emissary sent by the god of heaven. He knew how to brag. When he saw how seriously Yi Fei was listening to him, Blood Demon brought out 120% of his bragging abilities. He used all sorts of ways to belittle the new Emperor Yi Fei, while at the same time elevating a certain Supreme Venerate's status on the divine throne. Chapter 1905. The Blood Demon did not realize that his unintentional flattery had landed on the dragon's leg instead of the horse's leg. However, the human emperor was the public enemy of the sorcerer tribe, after all. When the sorcerer god saw that the Blood Demon, who represented the sorcerer tribe, was trying so hard to belittle the new human emperor and even wanted to trample him on the ground, they were very satisfied and began to ask the sky god about the details of the extermination of the human emperor palace, as well as the specific strength of the human race's impregnable pass. The Blood Demon fully displayed his ability as the #1 braggart of the demon race. If he could boast, he would boast. If he could not, he would change the topic and continue to boast. During this time, Yi Fei was also interested and listened along with the other sorcerer gods. Of course, he could tell that the Blood Demon was simply running around and bragging about how the Sky God had already wiped out the human Emperor Palace. That was simply a lie. But this is also good. The more the Blood Demon boasted, the more it means that the Sky God and the human God have not discovered the capital heaven shrine. The Demon Emperor and the Supreme Dean are still safe for now. After being forced to flee to the Sorcerer tribe, Yi Fei was most worried about the safety of the Demon Emperor and the others. Now that he heard that the capital heaven shrine had not been exposed, he was slightly relieved. Yi Fei patiently listened to the blood demons boasting for a while, and then communicated with the other sorcerer gods. Only then did he return to the Roland's palace with the blood demon. The other sorcerer gods did not stop Yi Fei and watched him leave with a smile. That's great. The god of heaven's envoy came at the right time. We can finally send this god of plague away. Yes, this guy surnamed Yi is too strong. If he stays in the sorcerer tribe, he will definitely become a big problem for us in the future. It's better to let such a plague harm the human race. Brat, what's so great about you? You were so enthusiastic when you heard that you could marry the daughter of the sky god. I left the door open these days and waited for you to come in. Supreme Venerable Huang Qiu was unhappy. With her status, it was difficult for her to take a fancy to a man, especially when she had hinted so clearly. In the end, she had repeatedly invited Yi Fei to her Roland's palace late at night to discuss sorcery together, but he had rejected her every time. Supreme Venerable Huang Qiu suddenly had the urge to chop Yi Fei into pieces because of her hatred. Strange, why do I feel a chill on my back? Yi Fei walked into the portal and felt a strange chill. Big brother, are you cold? There's Lord Supreme Martial Artist. This is the 10,000-year fire dragon cloak that the god of heaven ordered me to give to you. It is impervious to cold and heat. Only the most honorable earthly venerables can wear it. Gongzhu is indeed very good at observing people's expressions, but Blood Demon's flattery skills were even better. Originally, God of Heaven had planned to give this cloak to Yi Fei as a gift to strengthen their friendship. However, Blood Demon didn't even bat an eyelid and said that God of Heaven had specially given it to Yi Fei. Yi Fei could not help but nod secretly. He understood that the God of Heaven had sent the Blood Demon to the Sorcerer tribe twice in a row because he valued the Blood Demon's talent. Seeing Yi Fei's expression of approval, Blood Demon was so excited that his face turned red. He hurriedly tried even harder to flatter Yi Fei. Damn it! I've never seen such a shameless demon. Gongzhu was furious. In the Sorcerer tribe, Gongzhu's flattery skills were also very strong. If he said that he was second, no one would dare to say that they were first. Gongzhu did not expect that he would meet such a strong opponent now. Gongzhu felt a great sense of danger in his heart. No, I can lose in anything, but when it comes to bootlicking, I absolutely cannot lose. Damn it, Blood Dragon. Aren't you good at bragging? I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. Although he was furious in his heart, he smiled on the surface. Gongzhu did not give Blood Demon a chance to continue flattering him. He said coldly to Blood Demon, who had come to the Golden Palace, "Brother Blood Demon, what did you say just now? You said that the new human emperor is a disgrace to the human emperor and is a scum of evil? That damn new human emperor, he's lucky that he didn't meet me. Otherwise, I'll beat him until he kneels down and begs for mercy. He won't even dare to return to the human emperor palace." When Blood Demon thought of how he was beaten into submission by Xiao Chao and had no choice but to become a spy of the Divine Palace, he was furious. He could point at Yi Fei's nose and scold him. Yi Fei could not help but raise his eyebrows. Gongzhu continued to smile and said, "Brother Blood Demon, you're really heroic. All right, but I don't agree with what you said. My big brother is obviously wise and powerful. His achievements for the Human Emperor Palace are enough to be passed down for generations. He's really unprecedented. The past human emperors are far inferior to my big brother." "What? Your big brother is the new human emperor? Ha ha! Great Sorcerer Gongzhu, your joke is really funny. You said that your big brother is the human emperor. In Supremacy, Yi also said that he's the human emperor. Wait, your big brother, Supremacy, is also surnamed Yi." Blood Demon's body suddenly stiffened. He turned his head mechanically and looked at Yi Fei in shock. Yi Fei did not say anything. He only showed a very clean smile. And this smile immediately caused an equally clean smile to appear in Blood Demon's mind. That smile was so simple and kind. At first glance, he could tell that it was an honest person who was easy to bully. In the end, the two smiles miraculously overlapped in the Blood Demon's mind at this moment. The blood demon finally realized why he found supremacy ye so familiar at first glance. Then, the entire golden palace resounded with blood demon screams that were even more unpleasant than a pig being slaughtered. Heavens, your surname is Yi, and you even have the same smile. You. What about you? Blood demon, you bastard, look carefully. My big brother is Yi Fei, Emperor Yi. He is also the only sovereign of the sorcerer tribe. You bastard, you had a lot of fun scolding him just now, didn't you? How dare you? Gongzhu had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Just as he was about to rub his fists and beat Blood Demon up, he turned around and saw that Blood Demon was no longer in front of him. Instead, there was a huge blood dragon lying on the ground. It was foaming at the mouth and had fainted on the spot. Gongzhu was immediately embarrassed. He did not know whether to attack or not. Yes, Yi Fei was also speechless. He touched his chin and asked Xiao Chao and Ling Siki, "Why? Do I look scary?" Xiao Chao shook his head firmly. He jumped onto Yi Fei's shoulder and kissed Yi Fei's face. "Little Guogua, I want it too." When Ling Siki saw Xiao Chao kissing Yi Fei, she thought of something and suddenly blushed. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed Yi Fei too. Yi Fei inexplicably had a strange feeling, but before he could figure out what was going on, suddenly, another blood-curdling scream that was 10 times more miserable than the sound of a pig being slaughtered rang out in Roland's golden palace. Chapter 1906. The second time Blood Demon fainted from fright, the first thing he did when he woke up was to cry bitterly. He then kneeled in front of Yi Fei with great excitement. "Emperor Yi, your highness Yi, this little demon has been thinking about you day and night. I finally got to see your highness. I was so excited that I fainted." The blood demon was indeed the #1 braggart of the demon clan. He could continue to brag like this. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao were speechless. Gongzhu refused to let the blood demon go. He interrupted coldly. "Do you miss my big brother? Then why did you insult the human emperor like that? What do you know? You know nothing." The blood demon knew that Gongzhu was deliberately messing with him. If Yi Fei wasn't present, the blood demon would have swallowed this bootlicker alive. Then, the blood demon's eyes turned red as he tried to defend himself. "I only scold your highness with my mouth, but I revere your highness in my heart. Although I'm in the enemy's camp, my heart belongs to your highness and the human emperor palace." These words made Xiao Chao and Ling Siki widen their eyes in surprise. Gongzhu felt as if he was facing a great enemy. He felt as if he had met the most powerful opponent in his life and was about to fight back. However, as an envoy who had been sent to the shaman tribe twice in a row, Blood Demon's ability to adapt was not just for show. Giving Yi Fei a fire dragon cloak was not enough. Blood Demon immediately took out a large pile of ornaments made of spirit stones and immortal crystals, and all of them were shiny. He pushed them all to Xiao Chao, shaking her on the spot. His eyes were shining. Squeak! Xiao Chao quickly threw himself into the pile of spiritual stones and immortal crystals. He hugged a shiny object and rolled around happily. "Blood Demon, don't think that you can bribe us like this." Ling Siki put her hands on her hips. She was full of contempt for the Blood Demon's obvious bribing. She was not a child like Xiao Chao. How could she be easily bribed? Seeing that Ling Siki wasn't tempted by the treasures, Blood Demon gritted his teeth and showed his trump card again. He said respectfully, "Miss Ling, I brought these candied haws from the human army." "What? Tongalu? Why didn't you say so earlier?" Ling Siki hurriedly snatched it over and ate it happily. She was even more easily bribed than Xiao Chao. Yi Fei was completely speechless. Then, the blood demon felt something rubbing against his thigh. He looked down and saw that it was the dragon turtle. It had also raised one of its dragon claws. Its dragon eyes were filled with endless praise and anticipation. The blood demon was enraged. "This black pig has been afflicted with a natural plague. Last time, it was it who ate my flood dragon meat. Now, it actually dares to take advantage of the situation. There's a dragon pearl here. Take it whoosh. Before she could finish speaking, a black mouth had already appeared at lightning speed and swallowed the dragon pearl. The black mouth instantly appeared next to Xiao Qiao again. With a crunch, it bit off half of the spirit stone sculpture that Xiao Qiao had thrown away. The blood demon was shocked. This black pig actually ate its way to becoming a demon saint. Blood demon, that's where you're wrong. The dragon turtle might be delicious, but it usually cultivates very hard. Yifei couldn't keep his face straight. The heavens knew that other than Ling Siki, the dragon turtle was the same as Xiao Qiao. It basically slept and ate and slept after eating. However, it would be too embarrassing to say this out loud, so Yifei naturally had to help cover it up. Then, he asked the blood demon in detail about what had happened in the human tribe's impregnable pass in the past few years. As Yifei expected, the heavenly gods and human gods didn't know that the great divine temple was hidden in the river of time and space. Naturally, they couldn't find any traces of the human emperor's palace. On the other hand, the heavenly gods and human gods sent 2 lesser martial gods to the Tianwu continent. But don't worry, Your Highness. Those 2 lesser martial gods have already been taken care of by your friend, Zhao Shunjian. The blood demon said carefully. Yifei's expression instantly changed. It's Zhao Shunjian again. Is this person real or fake? What is the hidden divine temple planning to do with me? Yifei's heart was heavy. The more he learned about the hidden divine temple, the more he felt that it was strange and mysterious. At the same time, when the heavenly gods sent their envoys to the sorcerer race, they also gave the sorcerer gods many treasures. Out of courtesy, the sorcerer gods also sent their envoys to the human tribe's impregnable pass to return the gifts. As a result, Yifei's identity quickly spread to the heavenly gods and human gods. When they heard that Supreme Sovereign Qinliang had died, the heavenly gods were naturally shocked. After all, the heavenly gods and Qinliang had been the ones who had planned to promote the marriage between the human tribe and the sorcerer race. Of course, the marriage was secondary. The main goal of the sorcerer gods and earth venerables was to help them break through the barrier and enter the celestial world. Hearing that Qinliang had died in battle, the heavenly gods couldn't help but worry. Only when they heard that Supreme Sovereign Qinliang had replaced Supreme Sovereign Qinliang, and that Supreme Sovereign was about to become his son-in-law, did the heavenly god's worry turn to joy. He couldn't help laughing heartily. Ha ha ha, wonderful. Although I'm friends with Supreme Sovereign Qinliang, I have to be careful at critical moments. As for Supreme Yi, he's not only the sorcerer god, but he's also my future son-in-law. With them working together, I'm much more at ease. What? The person from the sorcerer race's side is actually a sorcerer god. The news quickly reached human gods' ears. Human gods' eyes turned red. It had to be known that the human god hall and heavenly god hall were in a situation where the human tribe's impregnable pass was divided. If the heavenly gods suddenly had a sorcerer god as their son-in-law, and Supreme Yi had clearly stated that he wanted to develop in the human tribe, it would definitely be a huge blow to the human god hall. Surnamed Yi and Supreme Sovereign? Damn it, why is this title getting more and more infuriating? Said human god's son. When he heard that the sorcerer god's surname was Yi, he instinctively became vigilant. When he heard that the sorcerer god's title was Supreme, he suddenly felt inexplicably furious. It said that Yi Mo once had the title of Supreme in the martial heaven continent. Could it be that Supreme Yi and Yi Mo? Could they be the same person? Human god sneered. Yi Fei, that devil, doesn't know what's good for him. How could he compare to Supreme Yi? 3 years ago, Yi Mo was only a demigod. Now that 3 years have passed, that brat will be lucky to break through to the martial god realm. Chapter 1907. Master, didn't you say Supreme Yi was only marrying the daughter of a heaven god? Why would he marry Lu Qing? The son of the man god was startled. As the disciple of the man god, the son of the man god had seen Zhao Yu and Lu Qing before. They were both peerless beauties that could topple kingdoms. Unfortunately, not only was Zhao Yu the daughter of a heaven god, she had also been used by the heaven god as a marriage tool to the sorcerer tribe. The son of the man god had no chance of touching her. However, even if he couldn't reach Zhao Yu's level, he was still Lu Qing, who came from a declining continent. The son of man god was very confident that with his status, being able to marry Lu Qing was definitely a blessing that Lu Qing had cultivated for 8 lifetimes. In the past 3 years, the son of man god had mustered up all his strength. Once he broke through to martial god, he would ask for a teacher. He had asked the heaven god for Lu Qing's hand in marriage. When he heard that not only would Supreme Yi marry a peerless beauty like Zhao Yu, he would not even let Lu Qing go. He was enraged when he learned that Supreme Yi would not only marry a peerless beauty like Zhao Yu, but he would also not let Lu Qing go. The son of the man god was filled with jealousy and hatred toward Supreme Yi, whom he had never met before. As a matter of fact, the hatred even overlapped with the hatred he had for Yi Fei. Meanwhile, the son of the man god, a terrifying aura of the martial god realm burst out of his body. It was obvious that the son of the god realm had improved tremendously over the past 3 years. He had even broken through to the martial god realm recently. Master, I have a favor to ask. There's no need to ask. Is a woman more important? Or is the status of the man god palace more important? Besides, it's only my guess. Even though the heaven god is ruthless, Zhao Yu is still the reincarnation of the empress concubine. With the heaven god's ruthlessness, there's no way he would let his daughter's status be stolen by another woman. I'm guessing it's more likely that the heaven god would let Lu Qing marry Zhao Yu as a dowry maid. The eyes of the man god flickered with wisdom. He then stared at his disciple coldly. The 2 Earth Highnesses on the battlefield had different personalities. The heaven god valued his bloodline the most. The man god valued his status the most. If Lu Qing was an ordinary martial god, it would be fine. If she was only a servant girl accompanying the empress concubine, the human god would definitely not allow his disciple to marry her. Of course, the son of man god also understood this point. While his face was pale, he also felt an inexplicable sense of sadness and humiliation. What right did Sovereign Yi have to take the emperor's concubine and even give away such a beautiful woman as a dowry maid, while he, the dignified son of God, could only watch helplessly, not even taking half a step to resist? He didn't even dare to say a word. Most importantly, Sovereign Yi and Renwang Yi were actually both surnamed Yi. Thus, knowing that he would not be able to take revenge on exalted Yi Fei, the son of man deity very naturally vented his anger on Yi Fei. Damn it, I can't afford to offend the martial god with the surname Yi, but can I trample the new emperor with the surname Yi to death? Yi Fei, just you wait. No matter where you hide in the starry sky, I will find you and step on your head personally. I will let you know the difference between you and me. How huge! With the determination and confidence to trample Yi Fei under his feet, the son of man deity turned his grievances into motivation. He began to work extremely hard to spread the news that Sovereign Yi was about to marry the emperor's concubine. This immediately caused an uproar in the entire human battlefield. Somewhere in the trial city, when a young girl heard this news, she immediately put down the spirit melon in her hand in surprise. What? Zhao Yu is going to marry, and it's even to the witch clan. This is a good thing. No, this fairy has to prepare a generous gift. No, Shangluo, you can't go out yet. The man deity palace is spreading this news wantonly. Their goal must be to lure us, the old friends of the human emperor, to appear. Without waiting for Shangluo to rush out, several majestic figures quickly appeared in the courtyard. The leader had black hair and devilish eyes, and his aura was as fierce as a devil's. It was intimidating, but very soon, a piece of melon skin was thrown at his head. Fu Renjia, don't you dare stop me. Do you really think that I'm here to give a gift to that fierce woman? I'm here to save my good sister, Lu Qing. Fu Renjia took off the spirit melon skin on his head. His face was ashen. He was about to fly into a rage when Zhao, Qianjun, and Jing Wushou quickly held him down and said, "Brother Fu, calm down. You have to maintain your poise. Yes, maintain your poise. If you young people could be half as calm as me, you would have broken through to the martial god realm long ago. Sigh, people are really not what they used to be. Public morals are degenerating day by day. You're courting death. Who dares to act like a master in front of me? Before the large blue stone could finish speaking, a bucket of paint suddenly flew in from outside the house. It hit the large blue stone on the spot, causing it to fall off Zhao Qianjun's head and unable to move. Zhao Qianjun looked at the stone puppet that walked in alone in surprise. Martial uncle, why are you alone? Where's my master? Sigh, don't mention it. I'm strolling around with that old hooligan. Cough. It's a restaurant. In the end, a brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth suddenly came and said that our names were on the black prison edict. See, that old hooligan ran off to kill that brat. The stone puppet shook its head and did not forget to stomp on the large blue stone. The large blue stone's face was filled with grief and indignation. How shameless! I'm a precious enlightenment stone. Back then, even that brat, ye had to be respectful and reverent in front of me. He treated me like a master and served me. That's enough. Let's think of a way to inform the Demon Emperor and the others as soon as possible. Zhao Qianjun, who was the calmest, stood out and reprimanded. Immediately, the entire courtyard fell silent. In Roland's golden palace, Yi Fei stared at Blood Demon with a strange expression. What's the god realm planning? It's fine if you let Zhao Yu marry me, but he's even giving Lu Qing to me as a dowry maid? Your Highness, this is great news. As long as you marry Zhao Yu, you can also rescue Lu Qing. Isn't this what your Highness has always hoped for? Blood Demon tried his best to flatter Yi Fei. However, what he said was not without reason. After all, Yi Fei's original plan was to rescue Zhao Yu and Lu Qing together. However, when he thought of marrying Zhao Yu and now having a dowry maid, Yi Fei felt somewhat awkward. Most importantly, Lu Qing was not just anyone. She was the granddaughter of the Tian Fa quasi-emperor. If this old senior, whose schemes were not inferior to the god realms, knew that his granddaughter had suddenly become a dowry maid, Yi Fei felt that it would be difficult to explain himself. Supreme Martial Artist. All the Supreme Martial Artists have come to pay their respects. They've even sent the Supreme Martial Artist's wedding gift. Just as Yi Fei was conflicted about whether he should agree to the god realm's good intentions, the other sorcerer gods did not give Yi Fei a chance to hesitate. The god realm had just set the time for the marriage when the 10 sorcerer gods, who had received the news, came together. They used the excuse of sending wedding gifts to urge Yi Fei to hurry up and get lost. After all, as long as Yi Fei was in the sorcerer race, these sorcerer gods would feel like they were sitting on pins and needles. They were afraid that Yi Fei would do something shocking and break the rules and tacit understanding that they had maintained for hundreds of thousands of years. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.